We've turned off the fluorescent lights, fired up some scented candles, and kicked our chakras back into alignment. Because this, my friends, is Spaced Out Sunday. My name is Everett Thiemer, and we are happy to welcome you, along with Kingdom of Nye Radio and Revolution Radio, to tonight's broadcast. If you happen to miss any part of tonight's show, you can always listen to our archives for free at youtube.com/spacedoutradio. Just do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire, where she keeps us up to date on the day's current and weird news, shopping in the SOR Vault, where you can pick up a Team Stump coffee mug, because everything tastes better when you're on Team Stump, or joining the Space Travelers Club, where for $5 a month, you can get involved in our forums, check out some fantastic content, and join our ongoing live chat. And of course, tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Please head on over to Spaced Out Radio's official charity, chivecharities.org, as we work to make the world 10% better. Tonight, we are joined by Dr. David Pilz. Dr. Pilz is a metaphysical teacher and educator, helping hundreds of students discover their pathways to success and happiness through personal one-on-one interaction and his book series, The Metaphysical Manual. David discovered his own ESP sensitivity at a young age, and through practice and discipline, learned to control his awareness to function in a world not ready to explore the metaphysical realm as a reality. Throughout his life, David has been an entrepreneur, exploring the self-sustainable and tiny home lifestyles before they were popular, publishing books on metaphysics and the occult, and working in the TV and media industries, producing documentaries and shows focusing on metaphysical teachings. He is a certified Reiki master, trained in alternative healing techniques and Eastern teachings. David also provides coaching, retreats, workshops for those looking to explore beyond what's in front of them. Connecting the metaphysical to what many of us consider paranormal, David has an understanding of topics from cryptozoology to ufology and how metaphysics and the paranormal are intertwined. David, thank you so much for joining us. This is going to be a quick 3 hours because we have a lot to talk about.
Oh, brother, I'm listening to you introduce me, and I'm going, this is a great sound. This is a guy I want to meet.
Oh, no, thank you. I don't get that often.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Hey, it's great to be here. It's really great to be here. Not my first time at Spaced Out Radio, but absolutely my first opportunity to have a conversation with you. Here we are on a Sunday evening, fireside chat moment. This is great.
Yeah, Sundays are a lot of fun. We kick back a little bit, have a little bit of fun, just kind of talk about some of these topics.
Yeah, for sure. I'm all about that. Absolutely. So what do you want to talk about first?
Well, first, let's talk about how you developed your abilities and how you kind of came to where you are today, because I know that you had some experiences young.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just to kind of get right to it, I was one of those kids you hear about, born psychic, psychic, quote unquote. Other cultures might use different labels for it, but I was born aware. I could see auras. I didn't actually realize other kids couldn't see auras all the time until I started going to school. And then things got a bit awkward, of course, right? Because my experience was different than my friends. Without trying to create this pity party scenario, because it contributed to my growth and my awareness and my journey this lifetime. But, I had events growing up very young that took me into a place of spiritual maturity. For example, when you can see an aura, you can see literally within 3 months if someone's going to pass away. That's been my experience at almost 100% of the time. I meet somebody and if they have an aura, great. If they don't have an aura, then, they got within about 3 months' time. And that's powerful. As an adult, imagine if I'm having an experience where my best friend's arguing with his mother about the fact his shoes aren't the right color. And he's, acting like a little, spoiled brat. And I can see clearly that she's going to pass away very soon, and they should probably be getting along better, And without the languaging of being able to describe that to my friend or to the adult in the situation, you can understand where, my life was pretty awkward, But my relationships with nature, my relationships with the unseen, if you like, the mystery. Back then there wasn't even a word metaphysics per se. It's certainly not on my radar, and it wasn't even a big word out in the culture. We're still dealing with, the bridging of thou shalt not, suffer a witch to live. So there was a lot of persecution, still within our culture there. And I'm only 50 years old, but we've come a long way, and certainly long enough. Here I am on, a broadcast literally worldwide, talking and using these words, metaphysics and parapsychology and these kind of dynamics, which is a thrill for me, I assure you. But so I've been aware, and even when mom and dad were fast asleep at home, I was in Sunday school asking questions they couldn't answer, and that began in earnest, diving into the real. Even at 9 years old, reading books, for example, by Morris Friedman, the foremost neurologist on the planet. Origin of the Species. I was diving into these teachings. I needed to have some answers. I was not just curious. I was obsessed about understanding what's going on inside of me. That does make me different than, the other kids. Just like everybody else, I wanted to be normal, right? And that being normal meant I had to understand it. I in earnest did not see the quote-unquote gifts as a child. I did not see them as a gift. And I wanted to turn it off. So I actually wanted to understand it more so I could shut it off. And what I learned along the way was that you really can't, unless you, it's kind of like if you want to turn your eyesight off, I'm sure you could jam a pencil into your eyeball, but, that's maybe not a good idea. And so I found out with, the metaphysical, the awareness, the, call what you want, psychic ability, ESP, sensitivity, empathy, etc., whatever label you want to throw at it, I found out that this was just a naturally occurring thing. And I was still arguing and struggling with myself with it, and I had a near-death experience when I was about 11 years old. My appendix exploded, poison hit my heart, killed me dead. It's a really cool book. I'm going to write one of these days. But I came back getting it. I understood the mechanics of life. I understood the mechanics of, what is a chakra and what actually happens with a tunnel of light and what actually happens when we pass away and what, the mechanics. There was like an awareness because there was an experiential component attached to this. Never mind the, and how do I go here? Never mind the, when you pass through the tunnel of light and you do connect on the other side and you have that immediate and intense connection with everything, all things, you come back from an experience like that different, I had some skills, if you like, previous, but I didn't really know what to do with them. And after my near death, I really in earnest started, sinking my teeth into, okay, this is not a curse. Now let's see what this baby's capable of. Let's, it's it's almost like I was afraid to drive in the car. And when I came back and I put the helmet on and, pinned it, right, And that began, like so many of us. And, I'm sharing my journey, but I guarantee there's a whole bunch of folk out there who are this is their journey. They're hearing, their story through my words, right? And where they were born with it, like as a sensitive kid, into a culture, into a society, into a world that just wasn't ready yet. But, they hung in there long enough to either develop it or, they hid long enough that they protected themselves, that they weren't, permanently scarred or PTSD'd or, shocked or traumatized to have these things shut down. That, post-pubescence, because when we hit our psychic puberty, we're hitting our sexual puberty and our pubescence at exactly the same time. This is why teenagers love this stuff. On one hand, teenagers are the way they are, such as eating carbs, sitting on the couch, bright lights, video games, music blasting. And they do that because their brain is literally hardwiring itself. It's like a butterfly cocoon scenario where literally the butterfly turns into, the caterpillar turns into mush before coming out the butterfly. Well, in our stages, our brain turns to mush during that process. And so we love the carbs and love the music because of the stimulus that it creates in the brain itself and actually creates growth and creates bridges and synapses and peptides and all sorts of other activity in a favorable way. So, but it's also a time when we are potentially paranormal active, more so than any other time. It's like we're stronger, and every so often, we flex that muscle and something happens and we're curious as heck about it. So I had an endless army of, friends and allies, teenagers like myself, to explore and experiment. And that's exactly what we did. I've always been a little more.
Let me
Yes.
ask you. Let me ask you this: as a kid, how did this affect your childhood? Did you feel disconnected a bit from kids? Did you, even at a young age, feel like an old soul kind of experience? Well, it seems like it can be very, I don't want to say traumatic, but it seems like discovering these abilities at such a young age can have a very interesting effect on one's childhood.
I would have to say that certainly there was an isolating effect. Now as an adult, I can look back at, little David and have great conversations. And, we've worked through any of the, discomfort or potential, leftover trauma there. You have to, in order to grow and go on, you have to work your shadows, right? And so, I've had those conversations with little David, from Big David. And, it was isolating. It was also fascinating. On one hand, I really didn't give two hoots about what so many kids my age were caring about. You remember Adidas and how important it was? Whatever. I was busy sinking my teeth into something way bigger, way more, right? I never did buy into kind of the fads. I never did, of course, my music puberty was about the same time as most kids. I stepped away from my parents' music into my own music, right? And so a lot of my childhood was very typical that way. In some ways, it wasn't typical. I actually started, maturing faster. When I was 16 years old, for example, I had my own apartment downtown Calgary. I was paying my own way. I was, my own ward, yada, yada. And because I had my own painting company on the side while I was still going to school. So literally I was, in school, high school, getting my matriculation diploma while some guy that I hired to play the boss was out there putting the crew together so that I could make my living, and my life has always been kind of not normal, if you like, right? And it was fascinating. And so a guy, you can imagine a 16-year-old kid who has this apartment downtown Calgary. I mean, you can imagine how much partying, should be taking place. And I swear to God, 2-3 times a night, we had meditation circles, right? Did it have an influence on my life, an impact? Absolutely. But I think in my case, and the difference maybe between myself and so many other kids is I got fascinated by it. I really did sink my teeth into it. And, I still had the, the fear tactics coming at me to shut it down and, shut it up and, all that stuff. But maybe I was too stubborn or too stupid, but I got fascinated by it and I couldn't let it go. And, in hindsight, through the eyes of David, the adult, I'm like, way to go, kid. It's really turned into an amazing journey here at 50 years. I can hardly wait for another 50,
Wow, that is really cool.
Yeah. So, relationships were different. Can you imagine, for example, the girl wants you to kiss her. She does. Damn well she does. She knows it. It, yada, yada, yada. And most other boys they have to rely upon things like, body language and, the come hither looks and all that wonderful stuff. Whereas, me, I'm connecting on such a deep level. I already know she wants to kiss me way faster. And so, there's been a couple of times where I maybe jumped the gun a bit, so I'm reminiscing about a specific, encounter where I kissed some young lady who, what are you doing? Well, you wanted me to kiss you. Yeah, but you weren't supposed to know that, et cetera. And so there was some awkwardness over time and relationships weren't easy. Boy, you can imagine a 19-year-old kid, for example, or a 20-year-old kid trying to find some other 20-year-old kid who's performing on the same levels of awareness. It's just doesn't exist, right? And so, there was some stuff, absolutely. But here I am. And again, I can't begrudge the journey. It's been amazing.
One of the things you mentioned very early on here is your ability to see auras and tell when maybe somebody doesn't have a lot of life left.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we've talked about extensively on Spaced Out Radio is the idea that there are many psychics out there that will tell you the positives.
Yeah.
And they will focus on those kinds of things. But if they can tell that maybe somebody has a life-threatening illness or doesn't have much time left, they don't tell them that.
Yeah.
Do you what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that if somebody knows or can see that somebody doesn't have a lot of time left, they're under an obligation to tell them? Do they just ignore it or leave it be? What's your take on that kind of situation?
And I actually do share these teachings. I do teach students and apprentices and all that quite a bit, and this is definitely one of the questions that comes up. It's the issue of the ethics of it, the morals of it, right? And you know what? Let me share in a story. I'll put on my elder's hat here, and I'll share in a little story. I was set up at a psychic fair in West Coast BC here, and some lady comes to the door, slaps her $5 down, and before I knew it, she was in my booth, and she plops herself down and says, "Just do whatever you do here." And she was flustered, and I got flustered immediately. I didn't have to work for the sale. She literally just kind of barged in, and I'm dating myself here a little bit, but I turned and I put the cassette tape in the cassette recorder, and I hit play record, because I record all my work, and I have for the last 30 plus years that I've been doing my work. But I turned to her, and the first things out of my mouth is, "Oh my God, you're passing." Now, the reason for this is because when I do my readings, when you can see an aura, you can imagine the first 20 minutes is just that, just reading the aura, profiling and seeing what I see as far as health issues and all the other stuff that's going on. There's so much information, literally, just at a glance, you can see someone's aura, right? So anyway, first words out of my mouth are, "You're passing." And she starts to cry. And I started to backpedal. "Oh, no, maybe I'm wrong. Life happens and, personal error." And she says, no, kid. And yeah, she was old enough and I was young enough. She says, she called me kid. She says, "No, kid, you don't get it. I'm here because of that reason. I shouldn't even be here. I'm a good little Christian lady, and this is a psychic fair, and I'm probably going to go to hell. But, something's bugging me. Something's not right. And my doctor says I'm fine, and, of course, my pastor thinks that I'm okay, and my family thinks I'm crazy. And I sit down, and the first words out of your mouth are, "You're passing. You don't dare shut up," right? And so the conversation went into this whole dynamic of, I shared, of course, my near-death experience and what my encounter was, and that's all I had to offer was my experience, and we did a little bit of fortune telling as far as her family and how they'd be, and some other dynamics, and I did find out that she did pass. And I found out because she had left that cassette tape and a little note next to it in a very conspicuous location. And when I found out, it's because the family had called me and their mother had died in a car crash.
Oh, wow.
Right? It wasn't, right? So, and of course, they were all about, and I don't blame them at all, they were all about blaming the messenger. Our mom died because you said so, right? In the moment, of decision making, she zigged when she should have zagged, and it's all your fault, right? Kind of an idea. And then, boy, that landed heavy. You can imagine, right? And I was a young enough man, that also I took this into, I'd never really arm wrestled with this question of ethics. Am I creating self-fulfilling prophecies? Never mind do I withhold or edit information in my clients' worlds, but am I creating did she actually die because I said so? Right? Are people out there going about making things happen in their lives because I say so? Right? And so the shadow I arm wrestled, was as big as a rhinoceros, I guarantee it. And I arm wrestled it for a little while. I didn't show up at any of the shows and didn't do any readings for a little while. And obviously you and I are talking right now because not only did I continue, but I continued with a vengeance. And I can recommend you to some really, really, really good, really hot, what I would call Fairweather Readers. They will avoid anything negative in your life. They will just tell you flowers and sunshine and the Smurfs, and they'll be accurate. And they're going to avoid all that negative crap as much as they possibly can. They're fantastic. But if you're coming to see me, I treat my business like a practice, and you're kind of taking a chance, both good and bad, just like I am, what I'm going to see. I have no idea. I'm as intimidated, and you're as much of a stranger to me when you sit down in front of me as anybody. My clients literally are sit down and shut up, let me do the talking, and half an hour later they're going, holy cow, right? And so that's how I conduct myself in that way. And so obviously now I'm in a place where I refuse to edit. If you come into a doctor's office and you got this huge growth, coming out of your neck that's talking a different language, and he looks at you and says, "You're doing just fine," that's not the service you paid for, right? So for me, it's about providing the service they paid for, which means I'm their tool. I don't have the right to edit. I don't have the right to interfere. And that little old lady who did pass away from a car accident, she got what she needed from me, not the family. The family weren't there in front of me asking me those questions and wanting those answers in that good way.
Now, let me ask you this. Did she have any kind of health issues that...
As far as she was concerned, I didn't have an opportunity to look at her medical charts or nothing, but she said her doctor thinks she's fine. And I remember her speaking that very clearly. Her doctor says she's fine. Her pastor, says she's fine, and her family thinks she's crazy. I remember that specifically,
So was her accident sort of foretold?
Yeah. Yeah, I would have to say that you know what? I didn't actually see in the course of her reading the accident. We never actually even got to that. And that was even an interesting dynamic to me, walking away from it, specifically in hindsight, why didn't we even talk about that? We got so caught up in everything else surrounding it, we never did. And you know what? That's a part of the dynamic of she didn't ask, she didn't direct it in that specific direction. So I didn't have to edit. I didn't have to, I didn't see that it was going to be an accident or her falling off a cliff or a poisoning I didn't see the how. And so I didn't / maybe couldn't interfere. And this is where the great mystery comes in too, right? You sometimes have to just allow, because in hindsight, if I would have seen car accident coming, I probably would have said, maybe zig right, instead of zig left. And there have been times in my clients' world, and this is the advantage of coming to see something like this, is that if I see something crappy coming into your life, I'm really hoping, like so many of my clients have had the opportunity to get a hold of me afterwards and say, I'm so glad I saw you, because now I saw it coming and I got out of the way. It's not just about, capitalizing upon potential opportunities coming your way, but also potentially being able to see it come at you. It's kind of like the ghost scenarios. From a stage, I was, speaking about paranormal and ghosts and, being able to see into that spectrum on a regular basis. And one of the people from the audience, kind of asked out, aren't you afraid you can see ghosts? And my answer was, aren't you afraid you can't?
It's two different views of the same world.
Absolutely. It is.
With that, David, I'm going to get you to hold on for 1 second. We're going to head on out for a commercial. And when we come back, we're going to talk about how metaphysics ties into kind of with what's going on in the world today, whether it be the paranormal, the UFOs. The metaphysics is tying into so many things right now.
You know it.
Yeah, we'll be right back on Spaced Out Sundays.
Don't go away, folks.
Looking for the stories of the strange and weird that you will find hard to find anywhere else? Check out the SOR Newswire on our website. Our writers, led by Captain Shirk, are scouring the world for the oddest and most bizarre stories we can find. Everything from weird crime to suspenseful and paranormal. We're working hard for you to bring you the most intriguing news of your day. Check out the SOR Newswire at spacedoutradio.com today.
Hey everybody, the SOR Space Travelers is open. For just $5 a month, you can hang out with Dave and our crew privately in our members-only section. With your signing, you'll receive newsletters on what's going on with Spaced Out Radio. You'll have direct contact with the host during the show in our chat, live streaming videos, and a great forum for your posts and more. Become a space traveler now at spacedoutradio.com.
Hey Spaced Out Radio fans, it's John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. We live in a world of mystery and uncertainty, which you guys know better than anyone. Sometimes you just need to be brought back down to earth for a while. One of the best ways to stay grounded is to help out with your fellow earthlings. And there's no more rewarding way to do that than to give through Chive Charities. Unlike many organizations, we don't necessarily aim to save the world, cure disease, or change the course of history. Our goal is to make the life of veterans, first responders, and those with rare medical conditions 10% happier. We do this by donating one grant item, ranging from vans to therapy programs to prosthetic limbs, to those who need it most. Chive Charities is nothing without our donors, an amazing group of underdogs helping underdogs. To contribute to Spaced Out Radio's official charity, head over to chivecharities.org and become a donor today.
Are you addicted to the woo? Good. Me too. This is Dave Scott, and you can woo it up with me every Monday through Friday, starting at 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, for 3 hours of great entertainment in the subjects you love. UFOs, ghosts, cryptids, intuition. Yes, we hit it all 5 days a week. Look for us at spacedoutradio.com, where together, my friends, we own the night.
You wanted new SOR gear, and now you can have it. The SOR Vault is fully stocked with t-shirts, hats, hoodies, mugs, and everything in between, with great logos for you to choose from. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com, click on the SOR Vault, and go shopping. Pricing is quite affordable, and you can look good representing your favorite show. So go to our website and pick up your new SOR wear at the SOR Vault today.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Move over, brother, and let me own Saturday night.
This is Rich Giordano, and I'm inviting you to tune on in to Spaced Out Saturdays starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, where I'm going to bust open the lids on everything paranormal. Why? Because we want answers, and I'm the guy who's going to deliver those answers to you. Join the chat rooms, and we'll see you this Saturday. Just be there. No, really.
From the heartlands of Canada to beards around the world, we know how to take care of you. Fill your follicles with the Mighty Moose Beard Oil. All our oils and balms are handmade and 100% natural ingredients because we care about your beard. And hey, use the promo code SOR2019 and get your Mighty Moose Beard Oil today. You can check us out on our website, mightymoosebeard.com.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/spacedoutradio, and while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for some great nightlife? The Moose Vancouver is the place to be. Catch a game on one of the big screens, or just come rock out to your favorite 80s and 90s hair bands. Great food starting at $6.95. The Moose Vancouver is open until 2 a.m. nightly. It's easy to find near the corner of Nelson and Granville. The Moose Vancouver is the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio. Looking for something new to push your limits? Look Beyond the Spectrum, a new docuseries featuring some of the best researchers in the world when it comes to everything from UFOs, government cover-ups, and strange humanoids. Truth seekers Stephen Bassett, Jeff Meldrum, Jack Kasher, and Stanton Friedman, among others, all chip in to bring their knowledge to you. Beyond the Spectrum can be found on Amazon as well as Tubi TV. Tell us what you think on our Amazon page.
Welcome back to Spaced Out Sundays. I'm your host, Everett Thiemer, and I thank you for spending your evening with us. Don't forget, if you've missed any part of the show, you can check out our archives for free at youtube.com/spacedoutradio. Just do us the favor and hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to some Bumblefoot, shopping in the SOR Vault, joining the Space Travelers Club, and so much more. Before the break, we were talking to Dr. David Pilz about his experiences growing up, discovering that he had abilities, and David, before we get too deep into some of these deep subjects that we're going to talk about, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about how metaphysics has changed over the years. So many people sort of have a negative view of it. They dismiss everything. But before we get into how it seems to apply to so many topics today, if you could you go over the history of metaphysics and how it's changed and developed maybe over the last 100 years or so? Or farther, well, or farther if you want, or less if you want. Just sort of a brief overview of what it's become and what it was.
Well, it depends on what you consider, metaphysics. Metaphysics, we could literally go back into the history of man and talk about alchemy. 4 elements and 4 directions, and the great mystery, and metaphysics means those things that are beyond physical. Right? Much more than physical. Like paranormal, of course, is advanced and beyond normal. So metaphysics really does kind of address these things that, through every civilization, we have been, whether it's through religion or science or, through other form of explanation or some kind of system, we've been trying to wrap our heads around it, right? Our current civilization, this draconian empire that's been built, if you like, a big part of what's bringing metaphysics out currently, and when I say currently, it's literally just been the last, 20 years. During the break, you and I were talking about the fact that as a kid, we were both bookworms, and we loved walking into a library and just consuming, just ravenous about information that you could find, pre-internet, and so it actually hasn't had things like metaphysics, for example, hasn't been around that long. When I was a little kid and I started going to the library looking for information, what I did find, like I said, was, Charles Darwin, The Origins of the Species, and, people like Morris Friedman, the foremost neurologist on the planet, who taught me what, pituitary gland is, and, DHEA and hypothalamus and all of this stuff, but there was some pieces missing. And those pieces that were missing were this discussions around things we call metaphysical in nature. Unfortunately, where most of the metaphysical in nature stuff ended up was in the madhouses where they were doing electrotherapy and all sorts of other, horrendous things to people, in the name of science. Because, of course, there was a bit of a gray area there sometimes between what was religious and what was science, right? I don't have to go far even down the red path, to see that, the indigenous people have kept metaphysics alive forever. It's a new term, if you like, that's showing up on the planet right now. But the indigenous people have had this dynamic literally forever. It's in the teachings, it's in the lifestyle, it's in their world. And it really wasn't until science, quote unquote, starts showing up. At first they were heathens. We did horrible things to these heathens, these these savages, right? And now, wouldn't you know it, we've come a long way, and we're realizing that there's a whole lot of respect that should be given to those teachings, because those teachings are metaphysics. As a kid, I got to tell you, my refuge, my sanctuary, was I had a real good friend of mine, a school chum, who kind of recognized my floundering, and he was Native, and he brought me onto the res, and for the very first time ever, I bumped into a smokehouse, a longhouse. As one of the kids, I found my way to the kitchen there. And what was fascinating was I watched an elder walk past me holding an offering plate. I know it for what it is now, but through a kid's eyes, I saw this guy walking by with his plate of food. Didn't know where he was going. I didn't know where he was going, but what I did know was that he had a bunch of spirits hovering around him, because they knew that they could consume that somehow. And this was awesome that this was happening, and I could witness this interaction taking place. And I say interaction because the elder knew it. And there was an interaction taking place. There was an offering. There was a collaboration at work here. And I was in awe immediately, and I was in the right place. I'm very proud to say that, the teachings began that day. I've had the opportunity, if you like, privilege of spending a lot of time in the smokehouses, receiving the teachings from the elders. I now carry a chanupa, a pipe, if you like, of prophecy, and I'd like to get into that a little later on. But at this point, to answer your question directly, I truly believe, again, that the indigenous people have been keeping these metaphysical teachings alive for a very long time. And not just our North American natives, Ayurvedic teachings very much talk about, for example, the 12 chakra system. I'm just going to assume most of your listeners know what a chakra is, spinning wheel of energy, da-da-da-da. Well, back in December 21st, 2012, when nothing happened, quote unquote, well, a shit ton happened. And we're just now starting.
We have to be careful with our words.
Okay, and more ton happened. And we're just now starting to catch up. Literally, in my experience, when you talk about, when I can't see an aura, people pass away. Well, in around the December 21st scenario, my aura disappeared along with every other person around me. Previous to that, me or none of the other psychics or elders that I was in conversation with believed in the, 2012 end of the world scenario. Wasn't I intrigued when I woke up one morning, my aura's gone? I'm like, oh my God, we're out of here. It's true. And so we dug deep, me and a whole bunch of my friends and apprentices and other indigenous friends, and we dug deep and we built something called a quickly, traditional pit house, because the elders teach us in prophecy this is the best way to survive, or potentially even thrive through this next shift and all these things that are happening. And about 3 days later, my aura kicks in again. Now, and not only just my own, but everyone around me, cling, ding, 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 and all of a sudden the switchboard lights up. Now, wasn't I intrigued when suddenly I'm not functioning on a 7 chakra system like we've been talking about for so long, but now all 12 chakras are on board. And those chakras are no longer spinning counterclockwise, but they're spinning clockwise now. So we literally, through that, we had a shift happen in about 3 days there as a human species that we're just now starting to catch up with.
So everybody on the planet kind of experienced their own personal shift?
Every person I've ever encountered. All I can do is share with you my experience, right? And so every person I've ever encountered post, pre, and since then, absolutely the answer is yes.
Could we have, and I don't mean to sound like I'm going deep into the woo, but could we have all jump timelines, move to different timelines?
Oh, so you're talking about Mandela Effect.
A little bit.
Jumping on the rabbit hole.
Because that,
absolutely.
That potentially helps explain some of the Mandela Effect occurrences that we see.
Exactly. So Mandela Effect, you see, one of the new chakras that have come on board is this chakra that vibrates above our head and actually has relevance towards the time and particle of our universe. So we are actually rising our frequency to achieve 144,000 megahertz. Have you heard that number before, 144,000? Many cultures carry it. We're actually not achieving a head count. We're achieving a frequencies. The light body expands, this is what the Schumann resonance is doing for us. This is what the sunlight that's no longer yellow anymore, it's white. It's a whole new frequency. White is white because all colors exist within it. It's encompassed by spectrums. And so the light that's coming from our sun right now is triggering our genetics. All that stuff, that junk DNA stuff, is going pop, 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 pop. And the scientists are just standing back going, whoa, So we got Schumann resonance coming in from this direction. We got celestial influences coming from other directions. Whether you believe in Planet X or Nibiru or otherwise, there's stuff coming in there as well. NASA just put something up the other day. The cosmic rays that are bombarding our planet are significantly off the charts like never before. There's something going on. I mean, you can grab the heck out of it that it's global warming, but there's something going on. And I think it's so far beyond any kind of oil patch crisis. I'm convinced this is a cyclical event and our planet's going through this shift. And it's not the first time it's happened, according to prophecies, but it might be our last time, fascinatingly enough. So, yes, I do believe that we all went through some kind of a shift back in 2012. I truly, truly believe that authentically. And we're just now starting to catch up with it. And it certainly explains, again, things like Mandela Effect. The reason why Mandela Effect is kicking in is because all those multiple timelines that we exist in are being eliminated. One at a time, if you like, they're disappearing until inevitably we get to one timeline, some kind of a 0 point, if you like, you want to call it that. And when that one timeline exists, it's my theory, and not just my own personal, but many people who believe this theory, when we actually achieve 0 point in the time, where time no longer has relevance on it, and just like speed of light and just like some of the other influences or anomalies, phenomena in our world, I believe we'll be vibrating at 144,000 megahertz, and that will be what they would call fifth dimensional aware.
Okay, that's a lot to take in. If we go down to this one single timeline, does that then eliminate the possibility of time travel? Because part of some people's theory on time travel is the idea that you would go from timeline to timeline, which
Correct.
With multiple timelines seems to make sense and would seem to be possible with the right technology. But if there's only one timeline, does that then eliminate time travel?
Well, exactly. Well, and again, that's another precursor that time travel is multiple timelines, right? Philadelphia experiment, they did not send a battleship back into a different timeline. They sent it into our timeline, right? It arrived. Not everybody arrived intact. It didn't go so well for some of the soldiers, etc. But if you do the research on Philadelphia experiment, that battleship did in fact land in the past on our timeline. So I think we're kind of apples and oranges. I think you've got, yes, multiple timelines, but I think also we've got this one, if you want to call it a primary timeline that always exists, and the rest of the timelines are mirrors or echoes, if you like. Is kind of one of the best analogies I can give for it.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. And so eventually all the echoes, and these echoes are being eliminated by choice, believe it or not. When we encounter, for example, a Mandela Effect event, the event's happening, the shift is taking place in the universe, this thing is going down, time's being affected, whatever ripples, however you want to explain it. When that's happening, and someone's standing there with red something in their one hand and blue something in their other hand, and they're thinking, I would sure like blue something, they're actually voting. They're deciding what the future is going to look like. And the red one they didn't vote for gets eliminated. This is why it's actually so important to be disciplined about what you actually think, what you actually know, what you actually want. Because there's a lot of media out there. There's a lot of influences telling you what you want. And if you're not, confident, if you're not aware of your world, you focus to be disciplined and focused on what it is that you're actually looking for in life, not just the regurgitated version of, I need the newest iPad, or I need the truck keys and the credit card, right? What do you want? And if you're holding that space these days, when a Mandela Effect, or whatever you want to call it, ripple event takes place, you're going to subconsciously vote towards the side that you're actually focused on. Because if you're not, and you're focused on the next to newest doodad, that's what's going to happen by default. And people don't know they're voting, I guess, is kind of the scariest thing. There's a lot of people out there, and you can call yourself woke or sheep or whatever terms you want, but there's a lot of people out there who are voting when these shifts take place, and they don't even realize that they are. That's kind of the scary part.
Are we connected to our other selves on other timelines in any way?
I would say 100% yes. 100%. And like I said, they're like echoes, but I think that they, like an echo, they bounce back to us information. There's a perpetually reciprocal communication or correlation or corroboration going on. It's us still, but we're just slightly different, slightly shifted. In one timeline we wear a goatee, and the other timeline we wear a dress, right? And so the other timelines are, if you like, our multiple personalities, our other expressions of self, our expressions of ego, of id, the I am. And all of those are the potentials. And when we focus on one of them in our real world, then in that echo world, it becomes more substantial. We've seen movies of this nature, where, Back to the Future, right? It's only a thing because we focused on it in that way. And if we stopped focusing on it, if it didn't happen, then unfortunately people disappear in pictures, right?
If these timelines are condensing, so to speak,
yeah,
what happens to the me in those other timelines, or what happens to the you in those other timelines? Where does that energy or that person or personality go? Because it's a little bit frightening to think about.
Well, I actually believe, and again, this is all my theory. I can't prove, half of this. Half of it I can. It's kind of weird. There's so much information available out there, but there's lots of it I can't prove, of course. But in my opinion, when each of those timelines breaks down, the body absorbs it. We use the term body to describe maybe light body. So I believe every time a timeline breaks down, each individual person on this planet claims a little bit more of their power and steps up with just a little more juice, without being scattered, without being spread out. So that inevitably, when you do achieve that 5D awareness, hopefully you're not still dealing with 3D mentality. Right? There has to be a wisdom, with great power comes great responsibility, right? And so it's my belief system, when these other timelines crash, for lack of a better example, that juice, that energy gets absorbed into still the primary timeline.
So could that be... go ahead.
Yeah, whatever that's going to look like at the end of the day, we still don't know. And that's the greatest awesomeness, if you like, and greatest potential, is that we can talk about destiny and fate and stuff, but I truly, truly believe that the human species right now are making choices about our future that are significant. Even if we're not aware of it, we're still making choices. It's not as if there's this finite railway track of this is going to happen no matter what. Fascinating stuff.
It is. And I want to ask you, with these timelines, I'll use the term condensing or coming together because I don't exactly know how else to phrase it. But you said that we're maybe getting an aspect or a piece of that other us that was in this other timeline. Could us getting that information or that energy, could that be helping to fuel what seems to be a rather widespread sort of spiritual awakening on this planet, on this timeline?
I couldn't have said it better.
Oh, I was hoping you would, because we got about 5 minutes left.
No, that was wonderful. I believe that, of course, there is an awakening going on, not just the planet and environmental conditions, but of course, we are a part of nature. However disconnected or discombobulated we think we are from it, we are still a thing of nature, and we are the ultimate alchemy set, right? And so, yes, metaphysically, esoterically, we're being fed and we're evolving. We are evolving, absolutely, into something here. And it's beyond anything that we could possibly... the Hopi have teachings, the Maya, again, there's so many teachings buried in so many different places. The Ayurvedic teachings, even the ancient Shu dynasty from, the Asian cultures. Then we even talked about Peru and Egypt and, all the information that's there. So, according to Star Nation prophecy, this is the time of awakening. This is the time that we become this thing that we're supposed to be. Appreciate we're heading into a break here, but I'm going to leave it off with a little bit of Star Nation teachings. Apparently, and again, I might be out bar just even sharing this stuff, but please keep in mind, it's not just me, but there are entire nations of beings, of people who believe this. That a very long time ago, there was a space group who came to this planet who, through hybrid technology, created human. And when they created the first human, they were freaked out because it was Merkaba active, it was self-aware, it was I am. The very first time. We'll call that very first critter, something no one can procreate. They actually also had to create something to procreate with it. We'll call her Eve.
Right? David, can you repeat that, because your Skype dropped for a second? Can you repeat what you called them?
Oh, sorry. Yes. Well, we'll call that first guy Adam, just because I'm picking a name out of thin air. And so Adam, call him a living, and he can be Merkaba active and self-aware unless he can procreate. That's still a consensus among scientists right now. It cannot be a living thing unless it can procreate. So they created this other being, same thing, this genetic hybrid technology, and they called her Eve. So Adam and Eve get together, bada bing, bada boom. Then you have kids, you have family. This is a living thing. This was so amazing because on other planets, when they made these critters, these beings, and they were making just bursts of beasts, because when you're a space traveler, lift that bale, you can't lift that log, and you can't work that hammer. And so they did this in every planet that they went to. They were looking for the gold, Ormus, and that's a whole other story. But when they were looking for the gold, they would show up and make slaves. In this particular situation, the slave they made was self-aware. And it was such a big thing. What happened was 12 Star Nation species donated their genetics so that they could create this mad experiment that literally lasted thousands of years. Lemurians, Atlanteans, Sumerians, and it ended December 21st, 2012. Now we wake up and we see what we got. And that's kind of the paraphrased version of the Star Nation teachings.
Well, you know, I
sure fits in with what's going on.
It definitely does. And I find it interesting that, you know, so many people focused on the Mayan calendar, but there were many other, I don't want to call them legends, but teachings or ideas that essentially around the same time in other cultures and other indigenous or native nations, there was going to be a shift. And these were cultures that didn't necessarily know that the Mayan calendar even existed. So there seems to have been some sort of
there was a consensus at a time when the communication wouldn't have allowed for it. There had to be some kind of communication that took place over and above any potential warlord, or because all they had was scattered power pockets until all of a sudden on every place around the planet civilization showed up. And the teachings are, like for example, the emperor of the Shu dynasty, when he showed up, he declared himself from the stars, and he had these 12 jade icons carved up, and each one of those 12 jade icons represented one of the Star Nation species that were part of the experiment. And simultaneously in Egypt, it was going down, and simultaneously down in the Maya cultures there, it was going down exactly at the same time. So yes, I mean, the teachings are that they were in communication with each other because those pyramids are landing docks for spaceships, if you like. And that's what they use them for. They use them for power, they use them for landing, they use them for, I mean, you talk to the indigenous, they know exactly what they are. It's the rest of the planet who's still trying to figure it out.
Okay, David, with that, I'm going to get you to hold on for just a second. We're going to step out for a break, but when we come back, we are going to dig deep into this concept of an awakening going on and how it intertwines with so many of the events that are taking place today. We will be right back on Spaced Out Sundays.
John Resig here, founder of Chive Charities. And just like you, we have a penchant for the uncommon, the overlooked, and the off-the-cuff. Chive Charities operates a bit differently than most organizations. We listen to our recipients to find out exactly what they need, and then we give it to them. We provide people with rare medical conditions, veterans, and first responders with grant items that will make a direct impact on that person's life. We don't just forget about our recipients when the van or the wheelchair has been delivered, though. Our recipients are part of our Chive Charities family for life. By becoming a donor with us, you could be a part of that family too. And our listeners of Spaced Out Radio know that thinking differently can be a very good thing. To get to know some of our recipients and to support Spaced Out Radio's official charity, head over to chivecharities.org and start making a real difference today.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Come tune in to SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember, Little Brother is watching.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
At spacedoutradio.com, we have a little bit of everything for you to stay up late. So while you're there, check out our SOR Newswire, where our team brings you stories of the weird and strange to the WTF from around the globe. News on Bigfoot, UFOs, paranormal, Darwinian-type crime tales. It's the stories that the mainstream media usually won't touch. Well, we got them all on the SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Come hang out with me, Little Richie G, as I take over the airwaves on Spaced Out Saturdays. This is Rich Giordano, and I'm going to bring you the most fun on the radio you can have with your clothes on. We're going to get to the heart of the subjects from UFOs to what's going on in the paranormal and everything in between. So come join me at spacedoutradio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, for the fastest 3 hours of your week.
The SOR Vault is open for business, and do we have some cool swag for you to pick up? All you have to do is head over to our website and click on the SOR Vault. You have a variety of cool logos to choose from, and put them on anything you want. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee mugs, you name it, we can get it to you. So do your shopping by supporting the store you love. Get your Spaced Out Radio swag at the SOR Vault today.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
Looking for something new to push your limits? Look Beyond the Spectrum, a new docu-series featuring some of the best researchers in the world when it comes to everything from UFOs, government cover-ups, and strange humanoids. Truth seekers Stephen Bassett, Jeff Meldrum, Jack Kasher, and Stanton Friedman, among others, all chip in to bring their knowledge to you. Beyond the Spectrum can be found on Amazon as well as Tubi TV. Tell us what you think on our Amazon page.
Are you having encounters with the paranormal, supernatural, or ufological that you cannot explain? Look no further than the SOR Sightlines Report, brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. This is Ryan Stacy, head of the Research Association, TESSA. Soon on the Spaced Out Radio website, you'll be able to file your reports and have them researched for you. We are independent and ready to help Spaced Out Radio listeners today.
Hi, this is Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel where we store all of the SOR show archives for free. And as an added bonus, every 2 weeks I'm posting brand new content on Cryptid Tales, where I will get into some of the spookier legends and folklore from around the world and tell the stories that go with them. Find us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio and check out Cryptid Tales today. Drop a comment and let me know what you want to hear. See you there.
For the price of 1 cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott, and I'm bringing you the Woo every Monday through Friday on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going all out to bring you the strangest, oddest stories and subjects I could find for your entertainment. Why? Because when we hit peak Woo, I know I've done my job. So come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com, 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, and together, my friends, we own the night.
Welcome back to Spaced Out Sunday. I'm your host, Everett Thiemer. Thank you for spending your evening with us. We welcome back everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates. KDNF, AM 1560 in Dangerfield, Texas. KDUN, AM 1030 in Reedsport, Oregon. KZFX, 93.7 FM in Ridgecrest, California. WQEE, 99.1 FM in Noonan, Georgia. And UPRN, 107.7 FM in New Orleans. For our digital listeners, we are on Kingdom of Nye Radio and Revolution Radio. And don't forget, you can check out our archives for free at youtube.com/spacedoutradio. Just do us the favor and hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to some Bumblefoot, shopping at the Spaced Out Radio Vault, and reading up on the SOR Newswire. And you know what? You have to go there and get a Team Stump coffee cup. I want some people to join Team Stump with me. I'm feeling a little bit lonely. So, come on, somebody join Team Stump with me. Now, before the break, we were talking to Dr. David Pilz, and we were talking about the Mandela Effect and timelines and how some of these have kind of merged together. And David, I want to talk to you about this kind of awakening that's going on, especially within the UFO community. It seems like in the past couple of years, so many people held on to the extraterrestrial hypothesis, but the interdimensional hypothesis is really coming out again. It's coming to the forefront, and a lot of people are talking about the idea that maybe there's a consciousness, spiritual aspect to what we consider aliens.
Well, fascinating. When you're, with your intro into this, question, you actually jumped in three different directions as far as I could dissect it. For example, aliens and interdimensional dynamic. I actually believe that, to be honest, there's two different kinds, if you like, or type alien. Some are multidimensional, interdimensional, and some are actual physical, have a physical form, if you like, a 3D form, such as you and I. Sasquatch, our good friend Sasquatch, a really good example of a multidimensional star nation, a multidimensional alien. Although theory suggests they may have actually been here before we were. Now, the teachings I've received and personally experienced, Sasquatch is a fourth dimensional critter. It by default vibrates and lives in a frequency that's different than this 3D world we call home. It comes here to this 3D world we call home because where it's from in the fourth dimension, it can't make a baby. The physics aren't there. The actual particle doesn't work the same way for, semen, egg, yada, yada, conception, bada bing, bada boom. So Sasquatch comes here, makes baby mom and papa, travel the timelines ley lines, meaning, of course, they can step into one conjunction of ley lines being, of course, the energy bands that crisscross the planet, and wherever they can join, you can call that a doorway or a vortex or a portal or a conjunction, or there's many labels for it. But ideally, in my opinion, Sasquatch steps into one of those portals, like he steps into a phone booth, and steps out another phone booth someplace else. It's one of the reasons it's the greatest, hide and seek champion on the planet, because when it actually, if it should even die, it would revert back to its original host form, which is 4D frequency, not 3D physical particle. And so this is a good example of, if you like, a multidimensional or an interdimensional species. Whereas there are also species out there. One of the theories, of course, is that the Greys, they're taller than us and kind of look like ant heads without the antennae. But the theory is that the Greys are us. After we've screwed with genetics and the timeline so much that we've actually created this androgynous portion of ourselves. And we're actually coming back in time to see if maybe we can. And here's where the question marks come in, because do you screw with the previous timeline or don't you? Are they coming back to just observe and record? Or are they coming back to potentially create a change, an impact on the future, their future, our future? And again, there's a whole bunch of question marks here. But, again, so the Greys as a species, would be us in the solid future, but using multidimensional time travel to come back into time to do whatever it is that they're up to. And then at the same time, you've actually got the physical presence of, other star traveling beings, Pleiadians and Arcturians and Orions and all of that. You see, and then we take another level. And again, the teachings are such that everything is related and everything has consciousness. Matakawayasin, an indigenous saying meaning all my relations, isn't just, hey, dude, we're cousins. It means we're all related to everything because we're actually all made up of this same stuff. We're all made up of the same goo. And that blade of grass actually has a consciousness, and that drop of water actually has a consciousness that you can communicate with. And that ability to communicate with some form of sentience, takes us into that place of, is it alien? Is it a species? Are we so arrogant as to just create the definition of alien or consciousness, in a bipedal creature, right? So this is a rabbit hole. I get it, and I'm spinning in circles, but all of the stuff that I'm sharing with you basically defines that there are different categories, which may actually be lending to some of the confusion. If you're going to start throwing, people who talk to God and people who talk to guardian angels into the same category as people who are dissecting and potentially communicating with actually hard 3D aliens interacting, we're talking apples to oranges, right? So it's an interesting dynamic. In order to answer the question, it would have to be defined more.
So let's break this down a little bit. Let's start with Bigfoot. Or right. Sasquatch, however you want to, or we could actually talk any cryptid. Yeah. Are they all specifically interdimensional, or are there some that are
I would say,
physical on our plane?
Totally. I would say, for example, Sasquatch and little people, fairy folk, have the capacity, ability, and may potentially be multidimensional in nature. But I've had the opportunity as a cryptozoologist and documentary filmmaker to chase Ogopogo. The Cadborosaurus actually is what we called it, because we actually managed to catch some on film off of the Juan de Fuca Strait. And all the experts, all the marine experts, when we sent our video footage to them, could tell us a billion things it wasn't. And so the Cadborosaurus, Ogopogo, if you like, or Loch Ness Monster, or whatever you want to call it, I believe is just in a seafaring or ocean-faring critter that lives down in the depths and comes in to eat. And we have these occasional occurrences with it. Loch Ness, of course, it follows the boats in. Ogopogo is this Kelowna lake that it's already been proven that there are underground channels that literally feed from that underground lake out to the coast. So it doesn't create, a huge, it's not a huge jump to suspect that, sturgeon and Cadborosaurus and all sorts of critters are making their way inland and back out again,
Okay. Is Sasquatch then, why, how do I ask this? What is he coming specifically to Earth? Do they travel to other planets and do the same thing? You had mentioned that they aren't able to reproduce. So is this something that's always been going on, and has it always been just Earth or other planets?
To be honest, half those questions I would be speculating. I'm not Sasquatch, right?
Fair enough.
Yeah. I have to assume that this being a fourth dimensional critter, it has access to other dimensions, other frequencies, other dynamics that I have no comprehension on in any way, shape, or form, right? I can share with you, I grew up in a place called Harrison Hot Springs out here in, BC, and that's ripe Sasquatch territory. My very first encounter with a Sasquatch, I'll share this with you, just because I talk in stories. Me and my father used to take off into the woods with, our 22 gun and our pellet gun and build lean-tos and fires. And he taught me how to be a woodsman, basically. And one night, we, taking target practice at the leftover beans, I managed to hit the can just right, and there was kaboom! There was beans everywhere, all over camp. And we really did hum and haw about potentially moving camp because there was so many beans. Of course, we knew we were going to attract something, bears or other critters, and we didn't want to be disturbed in the nights. But Dad had a few drinks in him, and it was still late in the morning. So we said, screw it, we'll just stoke the fire, and we'll keep it half an eye open. Well, interestingly, I wake up middle of the night sometime, and I swear to goodness, I see a Sasquatch kind of bent over and with his big fingers kind of picking these little beans off of everywhere, and just kind of nibbling on it. And I must have made a noise or something. And again, I'm a kid. And so it looks over at me, and I swear to goodness, we made eye contact. And the best way for me to describe what happened next was it Jedi mind tricked me back to sleep. There was no way that, waking up Sasquatch in camp, I was going to go back to sleep naturally, right? And I kind of thought it was a dream, but in the morning there was the smell, and there was that very distinct smell that every Sasquatch, investigator understands shows up. It's this musky bear dog, fishy, it's kind of like when you spook a skunk, if you like, so there was the smell, and definitely there was some other, if you like, physical, there was a presence in the camp the night before. And Dad and I didn't speak about it for years until later. I was actually involved with people like John Green, who was a foremost Sasquatch investigator. He wrote a bunch of books on it. And we were really heavily involved in the cryptozoology. I was trying to catch a Sasquatch, and have a conversation and what have you. And so I was at my kitchen table recording my report with another a Sasquatch observer, just so the report could become official. And I finished sharing my story, and the other guy asks me, he says, "So was there anybody to collaborate?" And I said, "Well, my dad was there, but he was fast asleep." From the other room, my father, who had been eavesdropping on the conversation, said, "Oh, no, I wasn't. And I had the same encounter you did." And so, my dad, of course, I'm like, "Get your butt in here." I mean, so all of a sudden he shares his report, and there it is. And that shows up there, So again, they, after having done all of these things, there's reports, to be honest, I've met some indigenous fellas who report that they're like the Jane Goodall of Sasquatches. In other words, they've been living with Sasquatch tribes in the woods for a lifetime, and they've got all sorts of evidence to support it. And what's fascinating about this was I was a part of the Indigenous Studies Foundation of United States of American of USA out of Washington for a while, and we got petitioned by a fellow who was told by Sasquatch that we're coming to a time when people are going to start to see them more, when people are going to start to be bumping into them and connecting with them, because we're becoming fourth dimensionally aware. We can actually see them where we couldn't even see them before. And the Sasquatch, we're really hoping that we'd make it illegal to start shooting Sasquatches and actually, make that happen. So we actually had some fun with Congress over that, and there was some results if you want to check it out. It's actually a lot of fun. But the bottom line is that Sasquatches, I believe, and through the different conversations I've had with many witnesses, are benevolent. They aren't necessarily, they're good neighbors. If they wanted to hurt us, if they wanted to go to war, quote unquote, I think we'd be and would have already been in big trouble. But I think this is just a good neighbor who's sharing this space with us. Whether they have other places that they visit and other places that they connect with, I don't know. Again, I'd be guessing as far as that's concerned.
Now, when you had your experience with Sasquatch, you said that you felt like possibly he had played some sort of Jedi mind trick on you to make you go back to sleep.
Definitely a form of telepathy. Absolutely.
Was he aware that you were there? Did you make eye contact with him in any way, or?
Yeah, both myself and my father's reports, he said the same thing. He woke up, eye contact got made, and then there was this influence, the best way for me to describe it was like a buzzing in my head, and I felt myself getting a little bit drowsy, and there was a noise. Now, myself and my father, we couldn't quite explain whether the noise was actually a noise outside of ourselves, like it was humming maybe, or if there was a noise that was internalized. But definitely there was a bit of a noise, and almost like, I've been fed, when they knock you out on a doctor's office or, for surgery and stuff like that, you just went do, 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 next thing I know, I'm waking up and it's morning, right? Which of course I never would have if I thought there was this big, furry, hairy creature, potentially dangerous thing in my camp, right? That was just bizarre to me. It wouldn't have happened. Otherwise, yeah, woodsman or not, either I would have got up and been a real tough woodsman and earned my, moniker of Davy Crockett as in, or I would have ran screaming like a little girl down the mountain. One of the two. I shouldn't have just gone back to sleep, right?
Yeah. One of the things that we talk about quite often is when people take a picture of Sasquatch, it's often blurry, seems to be pixelated, and
well, that would be the fourth dimensional frequencies then, right? The light spectrum will be different, right?
Is it just a matter of luck then that we're catching them at all? Do they have the ability to make themselves completely invisible, but it takes a bit of time to do that, or and they're trying to make themselves invisible, and that's why it comes through sort of blurry or pixelated? Or is that just a matter of whatever we do, they could stand right in front of us and we could take a picture and it would still be blurry because they're of a different dimension?
I believe that's the truth, that you could be standing right in front of them and take a physical picture of it, and you get that blurry aspect of it. I think probably the only time you'd be able, and this may sound a little crude, but one of the only times you'd actually probably be able to capture it is when it's taking a dump in the stream, like they do. You won't find scat because they're used to using streams and running water. I mean, as far as the experts have reported back. But I believe at that time it's probably the most physical. And potentially when it's in the act of making love, etc. So you probably have to catch it at these moments where it's choosing on purpose to vibrate at 3D particle vibration. The rest of the time, it's probably requires some effort for it to hit complete 3D. So it's probably phased at some form of gray area between 3D and 4D perpetually, depending on the moment you capture it at.
Okay, yeah, I could see why there would be some particular times where they would have to be basically
physical, yeah.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point about the scat, but what about, oh gosh, I don't know where to go with scat. I mean, I have questions about scat because, so many people claim to have found it, but it never turns out to be what they claim or what we think it is. Do you think that being of a different dimension, their DNA is either so different we can't detect
I believe yes.
Or...
When you went, I mean, here we are talking about Sasquatch crap, but you're absolutely right because, there is a dynamic here where they should be leading some kind of a physical something, scat residue, whatever you want to call it, right? To, whether it's a fur or even, again, that scent we talk about, that was a physical presence when I woke up that morning. It wasn't a metaphysical one. It was a smell, and I could smell something. That was a physical presence, right? So there is an influence on the physical. But beyond a shadow of a doubt, I believe that's when they're focusing on that. Probably when they are, sharing scat into the stream itself, it's likely physical, as physical as they possibly can be, assuming, of course, that while they're here, they do eat things like fish and stuff like that to sustain their body, to sustain their energy levels, no different than a human or anything else on this planet. We require energy to sustain energy, And so when they're on the 3D world, when you consume a fish, at the end of the day, that fish isn't just pure energy. There's going to be some solid particle that has to be gotten rid of. And so it is an interesting dynamic. I mean, I swear to goodness, I've never had a plate of, scat in front of me, Sasquatch wise, and I've been looking for a long time. And the best way for me to answer that question is for me to look at some scat, and I can tell you what's going on in its aura. What kind of metaphysical information is it emanating? Then I'll tell you. It's kind of like a clone. I'm dying to meet a clone because you can imagine if I can see the auric emanations off of a human being, will a clone have a different emanation? Will it be, and I got a billion questions to ask about that. I mean, there's no doubt they're out there, and there's no doubt in my mind.
Cloning opens up so many ethical questions, though. I know we just there was just the story in the news of was it the Chinese that had some more cloning experiments?
Oh, you know what? We're only hearing about the stuff they want us to hear about. And I both know they've been busy. Back when they turned a sheep into a puddle, they didn't stop, right? Same with Philadelphia experiment. They didn't stop. They didn't bamf a battleship back in time and said, "Oh, that was cute. Okay, guys, enough." No, they didn't stop for a second. They've been working with Stargate technology and all sorts of other doodads ever since. Absolutely. Why would they not? Right? They're just not telling us. That's all. Even this technology, this new technology where they can literally kind of get into your brain and stuff. I was working with some scientists over a decade ago over some of the dream technology where they're able to watch someone's dreams on a monitor. They used to be, they had to somebody up, like retinas and all this stuff, in order to get this information translated into a computer. While they just had to point a doodad at your head. And then take it one step further, they could literally be in a van out front of your street, pointing it at your house, you know? And I mean, these are some of the conversations, experiences I've had over time. I mean, being who I am, I have the opportunity to be able to get into rooms where I'm hanging out with scientists, as well as the opportunity and privilege of sitting around the fire with the elders, you know? And what's so fascinating is that so often they're saying the same things. Like I said, it's a bridging. It's so fascinating when I hear Star Nation teachings from the elders, for example, and then I'm watching on the news this UFO information that's coming out, this dynamic. I mean, even the last species that was here to run this planet were the Draconians. You know, we're talking about David Icke and a whole bunch of these other conspiracy theorists who've been talking about lizard people and reptilians and all that for a long time. And yet here we are, we literally call our banking system, our education system, our everything is actually literally called Draconian system. Because it's true. And the Draconians were the last species, according to all the Star Nation teachings, were the last species to run the planet. And their reign, their control, if you like, ended December 21st, 2012. Why? Because that was the moment when we were supposed to wake up, all of our genetics, all of our chakras, all of our everything that we are, light body especially, as a human species starts to wake up. And as we wake up, the whole universe is holding its breath, wondering what we're going to be able to do next. Because one of the things us humans are real good at, and again, this is all speculation and theory, I can't prove it yet, but one of the things that humans are real good at is manifesting. We can actually influence particle to be something. You know, back in the days of The Secret and those guys, remember that? Well, they were talking about how without the observer, the tree doesn't even actually exist. Never mind if it falls in the forest, does anybody here? Right? And so now we're getting to a place where we're recognizing that the humans have the ability to literally manipulate matter, particles, etc., ahead of ourselves. We're perpetually doing it. We're either manifesting out of fear or we're manifesting out of, you know, something else. But of course, most of us are manifesting from fear, you know, lack and etc. But that's one of the things us humans do best. You know, and supposedly, as we wake up,
David, we got about 30 seconds left. But
cool.
When we come back, I want to explore this idea of the Draconians giving up power a little bit more before we get too deep into some other stuff, because that's one of those things that it's an interesting idea. It's an interesting topic, and I want to dig into it a little bit.
Okay, you got it, bro. So, you got it.
We will be right back on Spaced Out Sunday.
Cool. Hey, space travelers. This is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thaw, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. And while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
Every night on Spaced Out Radio, we have places for you to hang out. Hi, this is Carl. Join our SOR Space Travelers group on Facebook for live chat. On Twitter, using hashtag Spaced Out Radio, you can also join us in our Spreaker chat room. Check us out on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR. All of our archives are free on YouTube at Spaced Out Radio. By the way, I'll be watching you at your window until you do. Bye!
Heading to Vancouver and looking for some great nightlife? The Moose Vancouver is the place to be. Catch a game on one of the big screens or just come rock out to your favorite 80s and 90s hair bands. Great food starting at $6.95. The Moose Vancouver is open until 2 a.m. nightly. It's easy to find near the corner of Nelson and Granville. The Moose Vancouver is the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Hey everybody, the SOR Space Travelers is open. For just $5 a month, you can hang out with Dave and our crew privately in our members-only section. With your signing, you'll receive newsletters on what's going on with Spaced Out Radio. You'll have direct contact with the host during the show in our chat, live streaming videos, and a great forum for your posts and more. Become a space traveler now at spacedoutradio.com. Hey everybody, the SOR Space Travelers is open. For just $5 a month, you can hang out with Dave and our crew privately in our members-only section. With your signing, you'll receive newsletters on what's going on with Spaced Out Radio. You'll have direct contact with the host during the show in our chat, live streaming videos, and a great forum for your posts and more. Become a space traveler now at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, this is Geraldine Orozco from San Francisco's Bay Area Meditation. I invite you to join me the first Tuesday of every month with Dave Scott for Spaced Out Radio's The Spiritual You. In this fast-paced world we live in, it's time for you to take some time for you. We'll cover every possible subject from powerful meditation to healing techniques to your own intuition and spirituality. So come join us for The Spiritual You.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Move over, brother, and let me own Saturday night.
This is Rich Giordano, and I'm inviting you to tune on in to Spaced Out Saturdays starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, where I'm going to bust open the lids on everything paranormal. Why? Because we want answers, and I'm the guy who's going to deliver those answers to you. Join the chat rooms, and we'll see you this Saturday. Just be there. No, really.
Looking for the stories of the strange and weird that you will find hard to find anywhere else? Check out the SOR Newswire on our website. Our writers, led by Captain Shirk, are scouring the world for the oddest and most bizarre stories we can find. Everything from weird crime to suspenseful and paranormal. We're working hard for you to bring you the most intriguing news of your day. Check out the SOR Newswire at spacedoutradio.com today.
We're back on Spaced Out Sundays. I'm your host, Everett Thiemer. Thank you for spending your evening with us. Don't forget, if you've missed any part of the show, you can check out our archives for free at youtube.com/spacedoutradio. Just do us the favor and hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to some Bumblefoot, shopping in the vault, joining the Space Travelers Club, checking out the Newswire. There is so much to do. There's no reason not to go to the website and check out some of these things. Now, before the break, we were talking with Dr. David Pilz, and we were just digging into the idea of the Draconians controlling the planet. And David, I want to ask you, because, we talk about how things are so draconian, and it refers to things sort of being old and out of date at times. But who are the Draconians, and when did they take control of the planet?
Well, Draconian itself actually is the label that we use to describe our banking industry. Actually, Google it, the banking and kind of how we run things and how we have been doing things on this planet, for quite some time, are draconian. We actually call it that. Within us, we have something called the reptilian brain, etc., that responds to fight or flight. According to the teachings, 12 Star Nation species donated their genetic materials so that an experiment could happen. And that experiment would be that all 12 of those Star Nation genetics mixed together into one critter we call human. Now, a long time ago, it started with the Lemurians and the Atlanteans and the Sumerians and a whole bunch of other Ians. But now it's kind of our turn. Now, what's interesting and different is that each one of those 12 Star Nation species were given an opportunity to run the planet as they saw fit. They literally moved the planet's orbit. We know that if we move the planet's orbit literally even by a few degrees, it changes significantly what the biosphere and what the living conditions on this planet are. And so, as an example, before the Draconians were the giants. We're finding giant skeletons everywhere these days. And the scientists are very clear that according to the current gravity on the planet, there's no way that those skeletons could have even stood, never mind thrived as a civilization. So the gravity had to be different. The resources had to be different. The whole biosphere, everything about the planet had to be slightly different. And so theory has it that our moon is kind of like a tugboat, keeping the Earth exactly where it needs to be so that each one of these species could have the planet running and functioning as they saw fit. The giants could potentially have been the Palladians, and they ran their civilization much different than, of course, the Draconians would. The Draconians, they're a reptilian, they're a warrior-like species, if you like. Kind of like, what's his name, Worf, off of Star Trek. And, we know the narrative. You're born on a battlefield, and you build an empire with your bare hands in spite of many foes conquered before you, yada, yada. We know the narrative. And, this is a good thing, and, you do it on your own, and yada, yada, yada. Well, that's very reptilian. That's very draconian, We've heard rumors galore about, the Queen being a reptile and all these other places they're supposedly being exposed. Well, true otherwise. I'm not going to point fingers at anybody, but it sure fits in nicely with some of the Star Nation teachings. Again, the Draconians had reign on the planet, basically from the time of the dinosaurs to now. And now was December 21st, 2012, when they were no longer in charge anymore. They're no longer allowed to hold sway over the planet. And because what was supposed to happen is that all the Star Nation species, all the genetics that are inside of us, including the Draconians, they're supposed to be 1/12 of the equation. Let's not completely nefarize these people. I mean, they're not villains. They just did it their way. They were supposed to. And they're a part of us. It might very well be that as humans get out there and start space traveling, we might need a little bit of that draconian in our back pocket because we might not be top of the food chain out there. We might need a little bit of that warrior in us. Whatever the reasons were, there's bound to be the umbrella big picture someplace. And according to prophecy, that big umbrella someplace is now coming live. It's between now and 2024 that not only full disclosure over interactions with aliens and UFO take place, but actually shaking hands with our great exponential great grandfathers. Because supposedly they were our ancestors. And as we wake up, all these 12 Star Nation species genetics inside of us also wake up to create this brand new being we'll call human. And then, like I said, the whole universe is holding its breath. As the Draconian Empire ends, we're even getting plenty of cues. I mean, I'm not a political figure. In my opinion, they're all puppets being run by some other puppet master, higher up on the string. But this Trump guy was, even by prophecy, brought in to wreck the empire. His job is to drain the swamp. He's being completely honest and clear about who and what he is. He's here to wreck that empire.
With the impeachment hearings and things going on in the U.S. right now, let's steer clear of Trump
Absolutely.
a little bit. But what I wanted to ask you was, if the Draconians are warrior-like, did they give up control peacefully?
Well, I think we're watching it happen right now. Right? I mean, I think this is what it looks like as far as them giving up peacefully. I'm driving a Tesla these days. That's new, right? Technology is coming in. There's a wave. There's a shift, like you said, not just in consciousness, but my wildcraft teacher, for example, many years ago, shared with me that we've gone through this shift within the human spectrum in a very short amount of time, where women, for example, were property at one point in time and couldn't even vote. And now we recognize them as, they're people, just like everybody else. And, then we got to a place where now we're recognizing that cow has feelings and we might not even want to eat it, says the vegan, right? There are these beings that are bipedal that can look at us, might actually have feelings and be sentient. And so we're now recognizing they have rights. Dolphins have been declared as having equal rights by the country of India, It's not a giant step, and we're going to recognize that trees and carrots and plant life and all beings are also a living scenario itself. So as a species, very quickly, we're awakening and we're becoming. Again, I don't want to get involved in any political conversations either, because it doesn't matter. It's already over. It's done. And we're stepping into something new. And I do hear terms like New World Order and stuff like that being thrown out there, but I truly believe there's something of that nature coming to the fruition here, where the borders are going to disappear, and there's going to be this collaboration of all 12 Star Nation species that are going to be contributing to something that's good for everybody. And I don't believe it's going to be this dictatorship, this fear-based New World Order that maybe is being presented. I think it's going to be something a little different than that yet.
Who do you think is on board or up on deck to take over next?
I believe it's going to be the collaboration of each of these 12 Star Nation species, a council, if you like. The game changer that's going to happen is, like I said, when the skies fill with these crafts, right? I mean, in 1 second, all of the bickering amongst humans changes, doesn't it? In 1 second, right? All it takes is for, oh my God, what is that, right? And suddenly it doesn't matter whether the guy's red or yellow or black or white or woman or gay or not gay and who's standing next to you. It's a human. And suddenly that changes the game instantly, just a little bit, because humans are human, whether we like it or not. And we make allies out of those things that look like us, that are like us, that are about us. And we will immediately create the they. Whatever's coming out of that craft is they. And we'll see how that goes, be it good or bad. My belief, and maybe I'm just being, a madman here and a nut bar even more so, but I'm optimistic about what that looks like, actually. According to the prophecies, according to the teachings, I'm completely optimistic that it's going to be run by us. And again, the wisdom of 12 Star Nation species coming together to create this mad experiment.
So with the idea of talking disclosure, and craft just being there and us interacting and being able to see these beings, and I mean that's basically as full of a disclosure as you can get. But there are so many groups and people out in public now hinting at little bits and pieces of disclosure, trying to argue what disclosure is. Is that speeding up the idea of these beings just flying their ships into our atmosphere? Because that's one of the things that we've talked about extensively when we talk about UFOs, is that if aliens exist, why don't they just land on the White House lawn or touch down at one of the major airports and say, we're here?
Well, it might actually be that when you spook humans, they don't behave right. You know what I mean? And I mean, how many movies and TV shows and conversations and news items have we been fed now for a generation? Star Wars, Star Trek, just, tip of the iceberg, right? Every single show has some kind of connection to it and has had some kind of connection to it through a generation and a half minimum, right? And so we have been spoon-fed this stuff, and it really has been up into a date where it's supposed to be live the next 4 years. But we've already been spoon-fed. I mean, Avatar, et cetera, you look at the programming, and if you don't think there's a consciousness behind that, guess again, right? We're already there. Last year, all the governments in the world came clean, discreetly, secretly, but the information's very there. And supposedly it's going to be this year that things get even a little more serious yet. And so, we're going to be spoon-fed just a little bit. This draconian empire falling and the banks crashing and all that stuff. Okay, if on December 22nd, 2012, all the banks and everybody else around the world says, okay, everyone give me your credit card, give me your mortgages, if there would have been an immediate sudden change, this whole planet would have erupted into something pretty ugly, right? You don't make that kind of change to humans and expect them to play right. They just don't. That's just who we are. It's how we are. And so when the aliens show up, we want it to be our idea, that it has to have that dynamic where it's just the way it is. It's just normal.
So are the aliens working with government entities here on Earth?
Beyond the shadow of a doubt. Beyond the shadow of a doubt.
Okay, so it's not a matter of the governments are trying to get out ahead of the aliens to disclose something before the aliens have an opportunity to do it themselves. They're working together.
Yeah, if the Draconians, even for a second, thought that they can continue to, maintain their power control on the planet, it was short-lived for sure. I'm again, governments and what have you, they're just all puppets, right? And it's the greatest puppet show in town right now, getting us ready for, the ancestors, basically. And that's where we're headed. And it will be that puppet show kind of dependent upon how close we are. Right. And but there's obviously still going to be a time limit involved here. And every day we awaken more. Every day we get triggered into a little bit more higher frequency, a little bit more fifth dimensionally aware, a little more wise, if you like, a little more woke, if you like, And as a species, the biggest dynamic right now is Darwin. Because as we start to evolve and these genetics start to pop awake, the biggest risk is going to be that not all these genetics are going to pop awake in a friendly way in every single person. If there's deficiencies, if there's holes in those genetics, if there's problems with that, previous traumas that are influencing the genetic chain, etc., that could actually be problematic when we're going through this awakening premise and this awakening protocol. So this is another reason why terms like metaphysics, actually being aware that you have a light body, you have a chakra, you have meridians. It's really, really important. I recommend everybody, memorize one of those acupuncture charts, little dots and all that stuff. Memorize the chart. And if you're feeling sore in one particular spot, then you can say, oh my goodness, that's, L3. So on my toes, that means my liver's having issue because my liver meridian's acting up. It's fascinating how hardwired we are to the universe that way. When we're talking about metaphysics, we're not just talking about the woo-woo. The woo-woo is there, the unexplainable, the mystery, and having a relationship with it is inspiring. But there's a lot of this stuff that we call metaphysics is just science. It's just provable, tangible information, knowledge, And that part of things, the science aspect of things, is catching up exponentially. You can prove a lot of this stuff. Even ghost hunting, and I hate that term. I actually created with a friend of mine something called the social work for the afterlife. Because I saw so many ghostbusters going into places with all their gear and their mediums and, getting entertained, but then they were leaving the mess behind. Where for me, when I was showing up in these spaces that were quote unquote haunted, it was like I felt like a social worker because there's always a story. And if I step into a space and Uncle Fred, is haunting the place, I'll have a conversation with Uncle Fred and see if I can't help him out, just like any social worker might, And before I leave, I either help Uncle Fred out or I make a promise to come back and help Uncle Fred out because in some way, shape, or form, there's always a story. Whereas, again, most of these people are just kind of about exploitation and sizzling and entertainment. And, I was writing ghost shows way before ghost shows were showing up in the reality. They were telling me there's no way that reality TV hauntings were going to work. And this was like 15, 20 years ago. And eventually they paid me to build some pilots for them. But at the end of the day, what's interesting was I never got my own show at the end of the day because what I was doing was real and I was educating. And every time we built a story, they tried to attach or contrive some kind of a story to it so that they could sell it as fiction, because society wasn't ready for real yet. This is a part of the metaphysical story, right? I mean, this was 15, 20 years ago, where the ghost shows weren't talking about the real stuff. They were still being directed by, the people who you believe direct and control TV. It's Procter and Gamble and, the money and the soap sellers and what have you. But I mean, bottom line, there was definitively, you don't play that game here. Now it's a little more open, a little more dynamic about it. And even some of those directors and producers and networks are coming back to me now and saying, well, our audience is a little wiser and smarter, and maybe we should look at doing something now. And I'm open to it. I just haven't found the right dish yet.
It's funny that you mention Uncle Fred, because I have an Uncle Fred who passed away many years ago. And he's one of the voices in my head that I often talk to.
And you think, and you thought that was by accident, maybe?
You know what? The one thing I've learned in dealing with the paranormal is you never question the oddities, because there are so many things that look like accidents, but they always come back around to show that there was a purpose for them.
Yeah, there was no coincidence here, I promise, brother. Just showing off a little.
Gosh, I had so many questions about aliens and that, and then we started delving here into the paranormal, and I want to dig into the paranormal, but I wanted to ask one thing about the idea of disclosure, and how 20 years ago people assumed that things would be an uproar, that society would collapse, and that money would be no good, and everything would go haywire if aliens were to disclose themselves. And one of the things that popped into my head is one of the big arguments was the idea of monetary systems.
Yeah.
And today, I'll be honest with you, I don't see my money. It's a digital, and I don't mean Bitcoin or anything like that, but it goes in and it comes out in a non-physical form.
Yeah.
I always have, or I think most people always have some cash in their pocket, but they don't hold on to $500, $600, $700 at the end of the week like they used to. Does that play into the disclosure at all?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, to be honest, monetary, if you like, goes away, and suddenly the planet becomes planetary unified resource. Right? We're talking something about as extraordinary as all the borders going down, right? I know I'm talking about the fantasy. I'm talking about the fairy tale here. How can even for a second England and Iraq and US and Canada and all of those people in a second suddenly all get along, right? But that's exactly how this happens. The banks, poof, they disappear as quickly as the smoke that the money actually is. Right? It doesn't exist anymore. And suddenly it's about resources. Suddenly it's about, kids actually getting fed and, resources being put where they need to. And technically, potentially even having the technology to fulfill every single person's needs. We don't need money anymore, do we then? If every single person's needs are officially met in 1 second, why do we need money? Keeping score? Right? It officially wrecks it, This the only thing we have money for is to keep score, literally. And when there's no longer a requirement to do so, then it'll disappear. Like so many of the other things that we hold so dear and true. And this is what I'm talking about. Humans, don't shock them like that. Don't hurt them like that. Don't, even when credit cards aren't any good, people will hang on to them for years afterwards, I'm sure, because they're just so attached, so if you like, trained, to be a certain way. And all of the talk and all the shifts that are taking place in our planet, including stepping away from the actual money system and talking about Bitcoin, right? I don't know about your world, but the barter system is still alive and well in mine, and so there's, by default, what's supposed to happen technically is some kind of a tribal mentality, if you like. We talk about the 12 alien species coming together. It's technically supposed to be a 12 plus 1 formula, 13, but you don't say 13, you say 12 plus 1. And there's lots of alchemy and teachings that are associated around that and medicine wheel stuff. But what's supposed to happen, according to all the teachings, is we default back to some kind of a tribal scenario. and tribal doesn't necessarily mean indigenous, but it sure has that flavor. They have an understanding of government that isn't being played on the planet. It's the same as our cycles, our solar cycles. We should be running a lunar cycle. The lunar cycle, the moon cycles are perfect and flawless, and we don't need leap year and a bunch of other things to keep up. That just keeps on ticking along. It's when we play with the solar system, the sun as a system, that we need leap year and stuff. And we did that because we wanted the patriarch in charge and the masculine, and there's lots of teachings around that too. But since December 21st, 2000, etc., we're also supposed to be shifting away from the sun cycle. Our calendar is changing, And so at the end of the day, when we talk about money, it'll have no value. I mean, you can't wipe your bum with it. Like you said, it's just smoke, right? It doesn't even exist.
We got about 3 minutes left before we have to go to break, which it's going really fast.
Totally.
I want to ask you, because the way you describe it, it sounds like all of these alien entities are benevolent. Are there any malevolent entities out there? Is there somebody out there interested in doing us harm or taking control of us?
I would have to say that these 12 Star Nation species are mom and dad, and they have our best interests at heart. I can guarantee you we're not the top of the food chain out there in the universe. So absolutely, I bet you there are species out there who would love to enslave /eat /whatever to us, just like we would, anything we would want to enslave, eat, etc. to. Humans are as good at colonizing and taking what they want as anybody else. And so you can bet that out there in the universe, we're, again, not the top of the food chain, but we got these 12 Star Nation species at least who are looking after us, making sure we're safe, making sure we're looked after. As we start to grow and we start to step up and start to get noticed a little more by the universe, you're absolutely right. We're probably going to get introduced to some species that may not have our best interests at heart. And we have to watch out for the used car salesman out there too,
Because I don't want to be made into alien gravy. I
Who does?
Really don't.
Yeah, totally, exactly. Yeah, I know the rumors out there that this is the case, but I truly believe, and the teachings are clear, that these 12 Star Nations, including the Draconians, because they're our forefathers, right? They have a vested interest in who and what we are and what we've become and what we're about. And whereas, certainly not all species participated in this process, right? For all we know, there's other species out there. For all we know, there's other species out there, in other star systems doing exactly the same thing. There's a cluster of 12 here and 8 there and, 100 over there. And
we got about 30 seconds left. Can you tell us what 12 species of aliens these are?
Oh, I know you're going to ask this question. I don't have it memorized off the top of my head. Come track me down on my Facebook page and I'll tell you, I promise.
Okay. When we return, we're going to dig into the paranormal a little bit, because I did kind of take you off track there to circle back around and talk about that. But you have raised so many questions that I'm just sitting here scribbling and trying to keep from having dead air as I just keep writing question after question down. There are so many directions we could go with this.
It's been wonderful dancing with you, sir.
Oh, and we're not done yet. We're going to dig into the paranormal and some other topics when we come back on Spaced Out Sunday.
Awesome.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott, and I'm bringing you the woo every Monday through Friday on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going all out to bring you the strangest, oddest stories and subjects I could find for your entertainment. Why? Because when we hit peak woo, I know I've done my job. So come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com, 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, and together, my friends, we own the night.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
John Resig here, founder of Chive Charities. And just like you, we have a penchant for the uncommon, the overlooked, and the off-the-cuff. Chive Charities operates a bit differently than most organizations. We listen to our recipients to find out exactly what they need, and then we give it to them. We provide people with rare medical conditions, veterans, and first responders with grant items that will make a direct impact on that person's life. We don't just forget about our recipients when the van or the wheelchair has been delivered, though. Our recipients are part of our Chive Charities family for life. By becoming a donor with us, you could be a part of that family too. And our listeners of Spaced Out Radio know that thinking differently can be a very good thing. To get to know some of our recipients and to support Spaced Out Radio's official charity, head over to chivecharities.org and start making a real difference today.
If you're heading to Vancouver, make sure you stop by the official bar of Spaced Out Radio, the Moose Vancouver. It's the place to party in YVR. At the corner of Nelson and Granville, the Moose Vancouver is always up to speed with a kitchen staff that serves great food. All food on the menu, $6.95 to $8.95. There's a reason the Moose Vancouver is recognized as one of the hottest spots on the West Coast. Get your horns up for the Moose Vancouver.
Come hang out with Spaced Out Radio, where we own the night. This is Carl. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and during the show, use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio to chat with us live. On Instagram, at Dave Scott SOR. On Facebook, give our page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. SOR archives are free on YouTube at Spaced Out Radio. Come join us, or I will come join you. See you at your window.
The SOR Vault is open for business, and do we have some cool swag for you to pick up? All you have to do is head over to our website and click on the SOR Vault. You have a variety of cool logos to choose from, and put them on anything you want. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee mugs, you name it, we can get it to you. So do your shopping by supporting the store you love. Get your Spaced Out Radio swag at the SOR Vault today.
Are you having encounters with the paranormal, supernatural, or ufological that you cannot explain? Look no further than the SOR Sightlines Report, brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. This is Ryan Stacy, head of the Research Association, TESSA. Soon on the Spaced Out Radio website, you'll be able to file your reports and have them researched for you. We are independent and ready to help Spaced Out Radio listeners today.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at mightymoosebeard.com today.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Come tune in to SOR, where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com, where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com, and remember, Little Brother is Watching.
Hi, this is Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, where we store all of the SOR show archives for free. And as an added bonus, every 2 weeks I'm posting brand new content on Cryptid Tales, where I will get into some of the spookier legends and folklore from around the world and tell the stories that go with them. Find us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio and check out Cryptid Tales today. Drop a comment and let me know what you want to hear. See you there.
For the price of 1 cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
At spacedoutradio.com, we have a little bit of everything for you to stay up late. So while you're there, check out our SOR Newswire, where our team brings you stories of the weird and strange to the WTF from around the globe. News on Bigfoot, UFOs, paranormal, Darwinian-type crime tales. It's the stories that the mainstream media usually won't touch. Well, we got them all on the SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Come hang out with me, Little Richie G, as I take over the airwaves on Spaced Out Saturdays. This is Rich Giordano, and I'm going to bring you the most fun on the radio you can have with your clothes on. We're going to get to the heart of the subjects from UFOs to what's going on in the paranormal and everything in between. So come join me at spacedoutradio.com, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, for the fastest 3 hours of your week.
My hands can feel good. I'm free. I'm remembering who I am. My hands can feel good. I'm free. I'm remembering who I am. My hands can feel good. I'm free. I'm remembering who I am. My hands can feel good.
Welcome back to Spaced Out Sunday. I'm your host, Everett Thiemer. Thank you for spending your evening with us. We welcome back everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates, KDNF AM 1560 in Dangerfield, Texas, KDUN AM 1030 in Reedsport, Oregon, KZFX 93.7 FM in Ridgecrest, California, WQEE 99.1 FM in Noonan, Georgia, and UPRN 107.7 FM in New Orleans. For our digital listeners, we are on Kingdom of Nye Radio and Revolution Radio. Don't forget, you can check out our archives at youtube.com/spacedoutradio. Just do us the favor and hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to some Bumblefoot, shopping in the SOR Vault, reading up on the SOR Newswire, and so much more. Now, before the break, we were talking aliens, UFOs, disclosure, that kind of thing. We're going to switch gears here a little bit with Dr. David Pilz, and we're going to talk about the paranormal and how metaphysics and what's going on with the paranormal, and a little bit about the paranormal media as well, because there's a lot of interesting things going on with that lately. So, David, you were telling a story during the commercial break, and it's really interesting. Can you kind of lead us off with that?
Sure. Many years ago, in a previous lifetime, I was an independent documentary maker, and some of the documentaries that I made on top of cryptozoology was, I kind of dislike the term, but it was ghost busting or ghost hunting. And the reason I dislike the term is, like I explained earlier, when I show up at a location, I really want to be able to communicate and enact and impact that location in a favorable way. If I can help that spirit either pass over or find some kind of peace or what have you, it's there's work to be done. And we were filming this. And I say me, I had a cinematographer following me around for the longest time. And we were filming all this, and we were sending pitch tapes into the networks. And they kept on coming back with, oh, this is stupid, and this will never work. And, reality TV meets ghost busting, et cetera. And just like everything else, of course, that flavor shows up. And they were suddenly interested. And, one gig, I got hired literally to go from one end of Nova Scotia to the other. And they hired me, and they paid me and my partner to find, by tracking down every myth, legend, story we could about any potential haunting or poltergeist. But we were supposed to find the top 3 haunted locations in Nova Scotia and visit them. And we did just that. I found some. For me, it was awesome. You can imagine an expense account and an opportunity and all the time in the world to explore. For example, I ended up in Lunenburg investigating this guy who had been killed as a werewolf. He was, shot by a silver bullet and buried in wrought iron and the whole works. And there was nothing to it, but what a cool story anyway, right? And so I had an opportunity to do all that. And I found a couple locations that spooked the heck out of me, honest to goodness. I had conversations with the directors. I'm not going to drop any names at this point in time yet. But the footage is still out there. But anyway, I had conversations with them going into these locations, and I said, you're asking me to take a bunch of green crew, and I can appreciate that at the top of their game, that this guy's the best sound guy, and this guy is the best lighting guy, and this guy's the best film director, and I get that. But I'm talking metaphysically green. You're asking me to take a metaphysically green crew into a location that you paid me to find an extreme location. Like, I wouldn't take many veterans into this space, never mind a green crew. You really maybe don't comprehend what you're getting yourself into here. And I got laughed off, of course, right? They're making TV. They weren't doing this for real. Well, I was doing it for real. I showed up, and we did this thing for real. And I swear to God, cameras blazing, I pulled a murder weapon out of the wall. I swear to God, I was stopping. I was walking by a drywalled wall, and I turned to the camera and I said, "I need a hammer." And the camera guy goes, "What?" And I go, "I need a hammer because I'm going to make a hole in this wall. And if it's in the budget, I'll make a big hole. We'll make it dramatic. But if it's not in the budget, I'll make a little tiny hole and I'll fix it before I go. But I got to go in this hall, into this wall, in order for me to fix the haunting. And I can't leave until I do because that's why I'm here." And so suddenly a hammer's in my hand. Bam, bam, bam. I pull the murder weapon right out. Cameras blazing the whole time. People are just, shell-shocked, literally, right? I literally had to spend some time with that entire crew, after a couple of days and talk them down because there was some PTSD, there was some fallout. And then later on, I had a meeting with these executives over this footage and this show that we were going to broadcast, and they told me clearly it would never see the light of day. And I said, "What? It's not good enough? Murder weapons being pulled out of walls and yada, yada." And they're like, "Well, that's the problem here. When we build zombie movies, people know they're movies. What you're doing here is proving the afterlife, and that won't fly. Our audience, can you imagine? I mean, you can see what happened to our crew. You can imagine what's going to happen to the general populace. We have lawsuits like crazy. We can't air this. It'll never see the light of day, David. Seriously." And so, well, I continued my journey. At one point, and I don't mean to plug another radio station, but there's a lady out there named Nicole Whitney. She and I did a program, Good News for the Soul, and I believe she still has the archives out there. Feel free to hunt it down. I believe we were the very first pioneers to ever do a live paranormal investigation broadcast. And we did it once a month for an entire year, different locations up and down the West Coast. And the first we did, she got so scared, so freaked out. Literally, she screamed like a little girl. It was a nightmare. I went, honest to goodness, until literally the very last show, she's talking, interacting, doing that good work with the spirits, the social work for the afterlife. She's doing the social work. She's doing the good work. No more fear. So the whole show, the whole premise of the entire year was teachings. And every show, there was some good, juicy stuff that showed up. And so this is what's been happening on the sidelines, if you like. She has, her sponsors, and she had other people like Daniel Brinkley come and play with us, and David Morehouse, and there's a whole bunch of really cool other names that showed up and outside sponsors. But she was independent enough her own that she was able to kind of put this stuff out there verbatim as she received it, without any agenda or intention or edit, And I'd like to think, unfortunately, that the networks have caught up, and that they're prepared to be a little bit more forthright about this kind of thing. But unfortunately, in order for me to even get my show, I would have to contrive some stories. I would actually have to attach some make-believe portions to the story so that I could sell it as a fiction. And because I'm an authentic storyteller, I can't do that. My name has to create good, as much true stories as I can possibly muster. I can't be known as someone who's a fiction writer,
So let me ask this quick. As you were doing this show, the TV show, they're wanting to create a product that is in search of evidence of the afterlife. But Correct. Then when you find or obtain something that would be pretty solid proof that something does exist, they say that's not really the goal. They don't want that.
Correct. Ultimately, you can obviously understand that they really didn't anticipate I'd find anything, right? And I can appreciate that. I mean, skepticism is healthy, right? And so, these are people who are top of their game in their fields. They were hiring an oracle. They were hiring me, who was top of the game in my field, without the anticipation and expectation that I was an educator and not an entertainer. I was there actually authentically doing the job. They were doing their job authentically too, but it wasn't the same job. They were making a TV show. And they were looking for sound bites, and they were looking for the right lighting, and they were looking for, all the other stuff. I was the one in that building taking care of the metaphysical aspects of things because they didn't know or even care. It wasn't until it slapped them upside the head that they went, whoa, this guy actually did it. This guy actually did it. And anybody who actually even saw that footage, there's a little bit of the symbols that I used and some of the energy and some of the techniques that I used to actually help that haunting, that someone from the outside looking in who knows those teachings, who knows those Hermetic teachings and stuff like that, would look at it and go, oh my God, that guy's actually doing it, because that's why I was there. So the issue is almost like I sucker punched them because they really didn't expect it to be real. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, but it's a little bit disappointing. I feel like
it is.
In many ways, we've spent the last 15 years or so getting hoodwinked.
You know it. And yet they're broadcasting. But that's exactly it, because when I didn't get my show, I created a bunch of pilots, and those pilots later on did become shows. Those shows, I can guarantee to you, there is some contrivance because they have to sell it as a fiction. So yes, I guess you've been lied to. There's at least portions of those stories that are true and portions of those stories that you've been lied to. Absolutely.
Oh, that shocks me.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, oh my, oh gosh, and I mean, we don't even want to get involved in the conspiracy conversation about, media and, agenda, et cetera, and all that stuff, of course. But that's just the way it is. I mean, they have an agenda to sell soap. If you want to, it's just about money, and they have an agenda to sell soap. And people who buy soap don't want to get the afterlife proven to them. They want to go to a movie and watch it and know dang well it was just a movie. They just got entertained,
Well, how do you think it's changed over the past 15 years or so?
Well, I think with independent media, unfortunately, the networks have either got to keep up or get out, right? There's so many different opportunities, the internet, for example, YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. I'm doing another program myself called Social Work for the Afterlife with a buddy of mine. And there's a whole bunch of us here in Vancouver, Chilliwack area coming together, collaborating to tell some really, really good stories that we can sell to, the other places. I mean, places like Netflix are putting, CBC out of business, right? And so, I mean, you start to, the media has changed, the dynamics have changed a little bit. And so the independent film producer maybe has a little bit more of an opportunity to share verbatim without editing or omitting, I mean, that's what people are looking for online these days, right? They aren't looking for the smooth, they don't want to watch Friends anymore. They want to watch reality TV, Kardashian stuff, right?
Well, do you think then that that's the cause of this is going to sound terrible the way I'm about to phrase it, but do you think that's the cause then of demons? Because so many of these shows, it in some ways it seems like we've gotten bored of ghosts, but we don't want to quit watching, so they have to up the drama a bit.
Yeah, they have to. Don't kid yourself, Ben the Shadow. Survivor, they were paying people on the side to do extra little things. People like reality TV shows are constantly slipping a little bit of something to the actors and actresses to create the drama. Don't kid yourself. And so, yes, we have to keep on upping the ante in order to get people driven to the show, to get them excited. But that's just it. Now the audience is in a place now where they actually want that. And so me going back and pulling a murder weapon out of the wall might just have a chance now. Right. Whereas in the past, they made it very clear there was, just been created too much shock. The wave would have been the impact would have been too big. Whereas now they're in those same networks are having conversations with me now because, of course, they've run out of ideas and they want new ones. But ultimately, they're recognizing that their audience is different now, too.
But is their audience too jaded now? If you were to pull the murder weapon out of the wall, how many of those audience members would just go, oh, well, they make this stuff up all the time, and people miss the message or miss the evidence.
Well, to be honest, that was my argument to them in the first place when they were trying to, flush the show. I'm like, well, how many people are actually going to believe it anyway? Really? I mean, even with hard evidence directly in front of people, there's going to be the skeptics, naysayers, and again, that's healthy. Right. I'm probably the biggest skeptic in every room, I promise, because I'm going in there with as much of an open mind as I possibly can. Right. And I've seen a lot of stuff and I've seen a bunch of junk. I mean, you and I talked about, how I wrote the metaphysical manual series that I wrote. is the collection of books that I wanted when I was a kid, and I didn't have any answers, to explain what was going on inside my being, including awakening symptoms and all this stuff. Now you can walk into Chapters, for example, and you've got literally a row full of metaphysical and paranormal books. The problem is that maybe out of 50 of them, you get one or two that are actually okay, and the rest are written by someone who's read 12 books, and suddenly they think they're an expert, right? And so it's an interesting dynamic, because in the past there was very little information, but now there's such a saturation of information. There's still very little actual true information available, and you have to be just much more discerning. Whereas in the past, people like you and I, bookworms, we'd walk into a library and just devour what was there. Just, we'd read about the Fox sisters and Edgar Cayce and, all that stuff. And now we're, going through scientific protocols and, and the whole, way deeper, it's just fascinating. It really is. But what's real and what's not? Even science, unfortunately, follows the money. Right? They only publish kind of what they're getting paid to, and that gets rewrote, a little bit too, according to who's paying for it, right? And so it's an interesting dynamic, saturation isn't necessarily valuable, right?
I wanted to ask you, because as we talked about these shows kind of ramping up the drama and things like that, I've noticed over the past maybe 5 years, so many of these shows go down the route depending on what part of the world you're in, they go down this path of your house is haunted by a demon and you have to get out of it or you're going to die. Or they go these over, and I don't mean it to sound like I'm being disparaging, but they go these over dramatic routes where they're almost scaring the homeowners into thinking if they don't pack up their car and leave tonight, they may not wake up in the morning.
Yeah.
What do you think of that aspect of the media, of the paranormal media? Is it dangerous? Because so many times these people don't offer to help. They just say, get out of your house now, and
correct.
You're in trouble.
Well, you kind of answered it in the asking, and I agree with you. As far as I'm concerned, there is not only just recklessness in that, but there's some shame that needs to be owned, right? Creating that kind of hypersensitivity, that kind of fear-based situation. We talk about devils and demons and multidimensional beings and all this stuff. I can honestly say that I have faced off some things in this lifetime that the only thing I could label it as would have been devil or demon of that nature. But I can share with you that was under extreme and extremely very rare circumstances. So, but it's not the first time that the snake oil salesman has been caught elaborating some dramatic dynamic to sell soap. And that's what they're doing, right? They want more ratings. They want more. And that's, I hate to say it, it's an old trick. It's ridiculous. It's horrible. And yes, it puts a blight on authentic investigations. It puts a blight on, what's really going on, and including the reason for the social work, for the afterlife work, because these people, even if there was an actual event taking place there, when they sensationalize it and they pour fear on that fire that's already burning there, they create a bigger mess that has to get cleaned up. Even better. So they're actually contributing to a make work program for me, but they're being reckless and they're actually being harmful. I would assume that's somebody who actually doesn't even believe in, never mind understand the premise of metaphysics. Right? You like a social worker, you don't go in there yelling and screaming the house is on fire. Right? A social worker doesn't do that. You actually try and get in there and bring some practical thinking and some balance, some grounding, and you anchor into a situation and you problem solve, right? As well as you can. But you certainly, like I said, don't go in there and the house is on fire, right?
Do you think inadvertently we're giving demons or devils more power by almost inoculating the population to them, because they seem to be so prevalent now in so many of these shows that it's almost a common occurrence?
Well, and here's the thing now. Yes, actually, because Now let's delve with the fact that us humans manifest so friggin' well. We talked about that already. One of the things us humans do is that. If 3 of us, or wherever 2 or more gather in my name, as an example, if 3 of us decide to sit together and we decide that devils exist, guess what? They do. So yes, chicken or the egg here. Are we actually witnessing and perceiving more because we're becoming fourth dimensionally aware and we're able to witness more than we did in the past? And there are dangers involved, parasites, metaphysically speaking, and what have you. Or are we actually manifesting it by planting the seed they exist? If we go back to the Mandela Effect teachings I was just sharing earlier, if we believe there are devils, we're choosing blue. If we don't believe there are devils, we're choosing red. I would prefer we choose red. And we decide there are no more devils. We're not going to buy into the sensationalism. We're not going to get carried away. We're going to feed the frenzy instead. We're going to choose different. And I'm going to focus on the red instead of the blue, which takes us into a world which literally manifests and creates a world that devils exist. That same formula feeds into everything in our life, esoteric or physical or otherwise. We already know that you can mentally get yourself in physical good shape. People have done it lots. They can heal yourself. Your mind is so powerful. You are projecting your future ahead of you, including the things like devils and demons and such. So you're absolutely right. When you're feeding that fuel, when you're feeding the likelihood of it existing, you're actually feeding the likelihood of you creating it.
But aren't we doing the same thing, though, if we just choose to think they not exist? Aren't we giving them power by letting them sort of work in the shadows behind us and over us?
Maybe. Yeah. You know what? And there's actually thinking towards that also. Absolutely. It depends on which level you're looking at this from. I just spoke about, the higher the umbrella, the bird's eye view, if you like, of our manifestation as a species, as a general whole. As an individual, keep your ears and eyes open. I mean, it's a scary world out there, and there are things that exist that go bump in the night that aren't necessarily just physical. It's not all bull manure. it's yeah. There's stuff out there. Don't kid yourself. Don't be screwing stuff. Don't be grabbing a 6-pack of beer and a Ouija board and thinking that this is a good thing for your neighborhood, right? I mean, stuff happens. We can get ourselves into some messes by being reckless, by being careful, by buying in to some of the hype, and all that stuff, and actually creating and manifesting it into our world. Whereas if you're living a good, clean life and you're not buying into stuff, and I don't mean necessarily even stay away from Ouija, don't do it recklessly. These are tools that used appropriately can be amazingly positive, beneficial tools. But just like so many of the things in our world, like tobacco, for example, if you smoke true tobacco, it actually stimulates mind activity, synapse activity, and frequency, and you actually get smarter, literally. This is why, the old tobacco pipes from the Mayan age, are so commonplace archetype, because they would puff on tobacco and receive some value from it. It's been so contaminated, something that's different. It's been contaminated and perverted. It's not good for us anymore. Our sex, same idea. Sex is really good and healthy and wonderful and so valuable to us. And now we have porn, right? I mean, so many valuable things in our world that twisted and twisted up by buying into things like fear and giving up our rights, our choices, and all of this stuff. So yes, we can manifest demons in. If you're not focused on it, it's less likely you're going to stub your toe on one, I promise. It's as simple as that. If you just go about your life and you're not playing in this field, like I said, you're very much less likely to stub your toe on one. And if you do, you'll know that something's not quite right. Call someone like me,
I think that makes a lot of sense. We did have a bit of a Skype issue there for a second. You were kind of bouncing in and out, but I think we got the general gist of it. We're going to step out here for our final break. It's been a really quick night, David. But when we come back, I do want to talk about your new project, Social Work for the Afterlife, and what you guys are doing and how you're doing it, because it's very interesting. But we will be right back on Spaced Out Sundays.
Hey everybody, the SOR Space Travelers is open. For just $5 a month, you can hang out with Dave and our crew privately in our members-only section. With your signing, you'll receive newsletters on what's going on with Spaced Out Radio. You'll have direct contact with the host during the show in our chat, live streaming videos, and a great forum for your posts and more. Become a space traveler now at spacedoutradio.com.
You wanted new SOR gear, and now you can have it. The SOR Vault is fully stocked with t-shirts, hats, hoodies, mugs, and everything in between with great logos for you to choose from. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com, click on the SOR Vault, and go shopping. Pricing is quite affordable, and you can look good representing your favorite show. So go to our website and pick up your new SOR wear at the SOR Vault today.
Hey, Spaced Out Radio fans! It's John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. We live in a world of mystery and uncertainty, which you guys know better than anyone. Sometimes you just need to be brought back down to earth for a while. One of the best ways to stay grounded is to help out with your fellow earthlings. And there's no more rewarding way to do that than to give through Chive Charities. Unlike many organizations, we don't necessarily aim to save the world, cure disease, or change the course of history. Our goal is to make the life of veterans, first responders, and those with rare medical conditions 10% happier. We do this by donating one grant item, ranging from vans to therapy programs to prosthetic limbs, to those who need it most. Chive Charities is nothing without our donors, an amazing group of underdogs helping underdogs. To contribute to Spaced Out Radio's official charity, head over to chivecharities.org and become a donor today.
Move over, brother, and let me own Saturday night.
This is Rich Giordano, and I'm inviting you to tune on in to Spaced Out Saturdays starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, where I'm going to bust open the lids on everything paranormal. Why? Because we want answers, and I'm the guy who's going to deliver those answers to you. Join the chat rooms, and we'll see you this Saturday. Just be there. No, really.
Are you addicted to the woo? Good. Me too. This is Dave Scott, and you can woo it up with me every Monday through Friday, starting at 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, for 3 hours of great entertainment in the subjects you love. UFOs, ghosts, cryptids, intuition. Yes, we hit it all 5 days a week. Look for us at spacedoutradio.com, where together, my friends, we own the night.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for some great nightlife? The Moose Vancouver is the place to be. Catch a game on one of the big screens, or just come rock out to your favorite 80s and 90s hair bands. Great food starting at $6.95. The Moose Vancouver is open until 2 a.m. nightly. It's easy to find near the corner of Nelson and Granville. The Moose Vancouver is the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Every night on Spaced Out Radio, we have places for you to hang out. Hi, this is Carl. Join our SOR Space Travelers group on Facebook for live chat. On Twitter, using hashtag Spaced Out Radio. You can also join us in our Spreaker chat room. Check us out on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR. All of our archives are free on YouTube at Spaced Out Radio. By the way, I'll be watching you at your window until you do. Bye!
Are you having encounters with the paranormal, supernatural, or ufological that you cannot explain? Look no further than the SOR Sightlines Report, brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. This is Ryan Stacy, head of the Research Association, TESSA. Soon on the Spaced Out Radio website, you'll be able to file your reports and have them researched for you. We are independent and ready to help Spaced Out Radio listeners today.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know little brother is watching.
From the heartlands of Canada to beards around the world, we know how to take care of you. Fill your follicles with the Mighty Moose Beard Oil. All our oils and balms are handmade and 100% natural ingredients because we care about your beard. And hey, use the promo code SOR2019 and get your Mighty Moose Beard Oil today. You can check us out on our website, mightymoosebeard.com.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckard, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. And while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
Welcome back to Spaced Out Sundays. I'm your host, Everett Thiemer. Thank you for continuing on with us this evening. Don't forget, if you've missed any part of the show, you can check out our archives for free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do us the favor and hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to some Bumblefoot, shopping in the SOR Vault. Don't forget to get your Team Stump stuff. Everybody has to join Team Stump, and I'm pushing that. I want Team Stump out there. I want people out there representing us. You can join the Space Travelers Club, where for $5 a month you can get involved in our forums, a bunch of different content, join our ongoing chat. Before the break, we were talking with Dr. David Pilz a little bit about the paranormal and demons and things like that. David, I want to do this last segment about this project that you have. You have a new show called Social Work for the Afterlife?
Yeah. Social Work for the Afterlife. The premise, of course, is that we go in and we don't ghost hunt and we don't ghost bust, but we're actually there to do the work authentically. Every story has a story. Every haunting has a formula, and you show up and you interact with what you can find there, and you try and fix it as well as you possibly can before you leave. It's not just about entertainment and capturing evidence and what have you and all of that, but it's actually about taking it that one step further and making a difference and having a positive impact before you leave, said location or person.
Do you go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask, do you have I shouldn't say a history, but do you have to go in often after other teams or paranormal investigators have been somewhere and fix what they've done?
You know it. Like I said, sometimes it's an actual make work program for me because, sometimes they'll get in there and stir stuff up that should have just been left alone, right? And so, yes is the answer. People just don't have the sensitivity to it. Very much like the story I was sharing, when I was building pilots for the industry. I had the best crew that you could have. I mean, cinematographers and sound guys and what have you, but they didn't have the metaphysical awareness in any way. And they would have been perfectly happy and willing to leave that house as quickly as possible. Certainly not having the wherewithal to stick around and try and fix it, right? That's where your sensitives will come in, your empaths, your mediums. And even then, unfortunately, there's a lot of, bull manure out there regarding that too, right? There's not as much authenticity out there as I'd like, It's fascinating. So yes, there's lots of messes that get created out there, but not just from other investigators, but like I said, from, reckless civilians, if you want to use that term, people playing with stuff that they probably shouldn't be.
How do you work with the spirits? Do you cross them over, or what do you do with maybe a spirit who is a little mischievous but wants to stay and is happy where he's at or she's at?
Well, yeah, you see, there's really not a formula. I mean, again, every story is different. If you ask a social worker, what do you do when you step into a room and there's a mischievous youth there? The answer might be different 6 different times, right? Because you read the situation, you read the environment, you read the individuals, and you do the best you can with the information you have, right? So it's all over the map. I've so often, I guess, a good 50% or more of the formula is I show up and I offer chi. I offer life energy. I offer frequency. I offer light to the specter, the ghost, the being. Because if they're stuck, lots of times it's just because they just don't have the fuel to make the journey, and that all they need is just a little bit of a push, and they're able to make the journey on their own. If sometimes they're stuck because there's attachments, because people who are living might not want to let them go, or you can understand psychologically, death is a messy experience, and the impact that it has on this and the afterlife. We already have an awareness that the birthing process screws up X amount of times. You can make an assumption that the death process will just naturally screw up X amount of times also. It's just the way nature is. It's not perfect. And so the story is always different. It might just be that it was a messy death and they got stuck somewhere, or that there's other parts of the story that are contingent and exasperating a situation, or it could be on, something as serious as lane line conjunctions are off. The feng shui is, weird. Maybe you're in haunted burial ground. The story is as eclectic as the address. It really is, totally.
You mentioned haunted burial grounds.
Yeah.
And this is one of those things that pops up for debate every now and then here around the Spaced Out Radio headquarters. Do you find a lot of burial grounds or cemeteries are haunted, or have people chosen to spend their after-death time here on Earth in maybe a more familiar location to them?
Very rarely do I encounter hauntings in cemeteries. Just it doesn't happen. It happens more often in hospitals than anywhere else that I know. And the reason for that, metaphysically speaking, is that some of the opiates that we feed people when they're in pain just before they die actually screws up the death process. The alchemy, the chemistry, if you like, the frequency of the opiates, morphine and other things, actually kind of, if you like, they discombobulate it or screw up the root chakra, the opening to the tunnel, the aperture where we actually access the afterlife. So in other words, we go in through the root, make our way up through the chakras. As we're making our way up through the chakras, that's the tunnel of light that they talk about, and we accumulate the information that we've experienced over a lifetime. This is actually our life passing before our eyes. So as we go into the root chakra, up the tunnel of light, our chakra system, light body, and then we emerge out the crown, the veil, the pearly gates, whatever you want to call it, then we step into the afterlife. And this is kind of the mechanics of the way it works. If you're unfortunately cranked out on morphine or some of these other ones while you pass, there is a potential of you getting stuck because you actually have to have that frequency removed so it doesn't interfere with that root chakra aperture. And so what I would do if I was a social worker to the afterlife showing up to address this situation is I would literally spend time with that spirit, offering it red and root chakra grounding frequencies until it became sober and the frequency of the morphine or the other opiate wore off. And then that spirit 9 times out of 10 is able to go on their own because they're able to actually enter the aperture and follow the mechanics the way they're supposed to be. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. How long, and I know this is going to be probably a tough question to answer, but if somebody in their living form has had a bunch of an opiate or morphine or something administered, how long does it necessarily take the spirit form to be clear of that?
Yes, predominantly it's been about 6 to 8 Earth hours. And that will mean that I will spend about 6 to 8 hours. And it may not be all at once. It might be an hour here, 2 hours there, etc. But anywhere from about 6 to 8 hours is usually what's commonly it's been shorter and it's been longer, but it's usually about that time. No different than, kind of sobering up a drunk, really, that kind of a dynamic. Okay. But what has to happen is I have to be, holding space for that entity, spirit, etc., with that frequency for that time. And then at some points, of course, and more gradually, as they gain strength and sober up more, they can take control of themselves. And eventually they take over and off they go.
If someone like you isn't there when this happens and the spirit sobers up, are they confused? Do they have the ability to pass over on their own then? Is it a case-by-case basis? What happens to somebody like that?
I would say, to be honest, even in the case of the experiences that I've had where a spirit passed away and they had this opiate running through their system, to be honest, they're actually reasonably aware that they were stuck and the why. It's not so much that they were still, quote unquote, stoned. There was an awareness, there was still a lucidity that was there. So they actually know they're stuck. And they know they're stuck because they can't get through that hole. They can't get through that aperture. And so they have to shed it. They have to clean it. They have to, and they can't necessarily do that on their own. Sometimes it's kind of like doing dental work on yourself. Sometimes it just doesn't work,
That's a painful analogy.
It is, but it's a good one because it's very clear and very concise about what I'm trying to express.
How did you come up with this idea, or how did you develop this? Did you have people approaching you looking for help, or what?
Oh yeah,
what spurred this idea?
Yeah, my whole life. Well, to be honest, you can imagine as a kid, some of my best friends were ghosts, right? Because that was my world, that was my life. It was here are beings, entities, call it what you want, ghosts who actually can have conversation with me, and I'm working out all the puzzles of the universe, all the mysteries, right? And so my interactions with the multidimensional world around us has empowered me to have a relationship with what we would call ghosts, or even poltergeists and Sasquatch and fairy folk, and all these multidimensional dynamics. So at the end of the day, what motivated me was I could help, and that's all it was needed. I could help. And, I can't step into a situation. And if I step into a room as an adult, for example, and I'm seeing that there is a child huddled in the corner, is starving and confused and, beaten, and I'm not going to leave it there. And as a metaphysically aware individual, I'm not going to leave that same child there, even though she's just a spirit, right? So it sounds very altruistic, but, I guess with great power comes great responsibilities. I can help, so I do. Right.
In your effort to help, have you ever run across a spirit that absolutely did not want your help and was willing to fight to make you go away so they could stay?
Absolutely. Yeah, my life has absolutely more than once been at risk. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, there's no question. I have documentation of absolutely. I got myself into some situations that I should not have been in. And, or maybe I was the only one who could have been in that situation, who could have handled it. I don't know. But I swear to God, I've filled my drawers a few times. Yeah, I've had my hide handed to me a couple of times, chased away, tail between my legs. I don't scare easy. Just know that. I don't scare easy. And, absolutely. I've encountered a few of those places.
How do you deal with how do you deal with those spirits that or those souls that just don't want to pass over or just don't want to go?
I'm not going to make them. Right? Sometimes if it's just a bit of I got to play bouncer and I got to nudge them a little bit like a drunk, that's one thing. But if there's an entity, being, ghost, etc., that's literally consciously making the decision that it just doesn't want to, why would I force it? There's a reason. There's going to be a story. It could be that spirit wants to stick around and look after the family until everyone passes. It might be, there's a gazillion stories you can imagine, right? Everyone's different. And so I'm not going to enforce my will upon another being, whether that being is living or in the afterlife. And so sometimes I won't leave any messes behind, but I'm not going to force an issue either. If a spirit wants to stick around and it's benevolent and things are just hokey dokey, I have no reason to fix something that ain't broke, right?
Now, talking about passing spirits over, and we talked about this earlier with, you mentioned an Uncle Fred, and I have an Uncle Fred. A lot of times it seems as though the message is that a spirit or a soul wants to stick around because they want to look over or communicate with a loved one or family member. But yet then there are so many stories of people who have completely passed over and they're on an entirely another plane, a different plane, but yet they're still able to communicate or look over their loved ones a bit.
Yeah.
How does that work? And I know you'd probably be speculating, but it seems like maybe a spirit doesn't realize that if they move on, they can still maybe make the occasional journey back here.
And that's huge. You just hit the nail on the head there. A lot of times when a spirit passes, and we talked about that tunnel, you can imagine that when you're just about to step off and leave your life behind, and your life passes before your eyes, it might very well be you don't want to yet. It might very well be that there is such a strong connection, for example, or concern, for things in this material world that you're just not ready to go yet. There's just stuff undone. Now, the issue is that we only have a certain amount of chi energy, life energy, in order to make the journey. And so even though someone may not be necessarily, on an opiate when they pass away, they only have a limited amount of energy. And if they use that energy, just kind of burn it up in order to show up. In other words, if that Uncle Fred shows up on the end of your bed at 3 o'clock in the morning, the worst thing you can do is run away afraid, because it took a lot of juice for Uncle Fred to do that. The advice is, hey, Uncle Fred, what's up? And have a conversation. Uncle Fred doesn't have to manifest into a semi-material form to hurt you. Uncle Fred can do it from an orb. And there's 4 different stages of spirit manifestation: orb, fog, funnel, and then aperture, or apparition, sorry. And so Uncle Fred doesn't have to hit apparition stage where you're actually kind of seeing him in order to affect your life. He can trip you going down the stairs as a globe, as an orb, and not have to form any hands or image or nothing like that. So no juice required. Whereas, they can get stuck just because they burn off the juice that they were supposed to use to make trip. Once they make the trip, if you're listening to this, go to the light. Make the trip. Then yes, you can come back and visit as often and as long as you like, absolutely. But make the trip. Tag in on wherever you believe is there in the afterlife. Tag in, sign in, and then I promise you can come back and forth as much as you want. But when it happens, if you have a consciousness about you, go to the light. Go first, then come back. Yes, absolutely. That's good advice.
You mentioned maybe people not ready to go, having too much yet that they want to do or accomplish, and they fight death. They just try and keep going. Does that affect their spirit personality? Would that be the way to refer to it? Do they come back, or are they stuck here as an angry person, or do they kind of, once they pass, sort of have their personality that they did as a physical being?
Well, again, the stories are as often as addresses, but for example, let's say, Uncle Joe decided not to pass because he needed to stick around and look after Aunt Sue. Aunt Sue then eventually passes away. She does it fluid. She does it effortlessly. Off she goes. The other uncle, unfortunately, who stuck around, doesn't have enough juice. So even long after his life is gone, it could be hundreds of years before someone like me stumbles across him who might be able to help him, right? If we don't get instant service at McDonald's, we're crazy about it, right? Imagine hundreds of years and you're stuck, right? There could be some madness. There could be some, there's situations you can imagine, again, like I said, as it flip-flops through timelines and generations, and you make a choice in the moment to stick around and help, but that moment lasts forever until you get some juice so you can actually make the journey. You don't all of a sudden magically find a gas station someplace. You have to stumble across somebody like myself, or potentially make your way onto a Ouija board, or potentially you got to get the juice from somewhere to make the journey, and that's where some of it can come from. Spirits can get frustrated,
Are spirits able to steal that energy from people, or does that enter sort of the demon sort of realm.
I think you're absolutely right there that it does enter into kind of the demon thing. I think that there are opportunities that are potentials, but you really have to be opening yourself up to something, like I said, to get yourself into trouble that way. There are actual metaphysical parasites out there that exist naturally and normally that are constantly suckling from humans. It's something I've witnessed my entire life. I mean, it's fascinating, metaphysically speaking, with walking down the street just in the city. I could, out of 6 people, see 3 different kinds of parasites all over them that they have no consciousness of. And when we start to see auras on a regular, because as a species, we're awakening, so that being able to see an aura is going to be one of the minor things. I mean, that's just what starts. And being able to perceive into these frequencies and understand them, we're going to start to witness not just things like Sasquatch, but there's other worlds, microscopic worlds. There's other worlds taking place simultaneously in our frequencies that we're just not privy to, because we're only seeing what the light reflects back at our eyes. When I look at you...
Dr. David Pilz, unfortunately, we just have a couple of minutes left. This has been an incredibly quick 3 hours. Can you tell people where they can find your information, what you're working on, what you're going to be up to next?
Well, there's always the Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. I'm not visible. If you put my name, David Pilz, into the Google, you're going to find me. My website's davidpilz.com, but it's just my business card, just kind of a little bit about what I'm about. Your best bet's, if you really want to make an outreach to me, make a direct connection. I'm very approachable that way. I have so many projects. Oh my goodness. Probably right now I could handle a philanthropist to come into my world. We'd be publishing books and videos and all sorts of things to change the world and its mentalities, But other than that, just connect. I got chat groups going like crazy. It's my responsibility and my wonderful obligation to share these teachings with the planet. And I'm really honored to be here that you give me this opportunity to kind of blab away for 3 hours.
When will people be able to find social work for the afterlife?
Well, we're working on our 3rd segment this year. And again, the rest, budgets and what have you, we're hoping to have it together by summer. We'll say at the latest, ready for sale. People can currently download, a couple of stuff that we've kind of put together prematurely. But the actual finished product is going to be a 3-part series. And we're hoping it's going to be done by the end of 2020.
That I'm looking forward to that. I recommend everybody, at the very least, go and check out your website, davidpilz.com.
Yeah.
That is a great place to start. And I just want to say thank you again, because this has been a quick and fascinating 3 hours.
Yeah. It's been wonderful dancing with you. Invite me back, please, anytime. Like I said, it's my honor and my privilege to share teachings.
We're going to have you back, definitely. But if you can hold on for a second, I'm going to tie this up for a minute.
You got it.
We've got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. A special thank you to everyone listening in at home, in your cars, at work, and in our chat rooms, wherever you may be. Remember, this show is copywritten by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thanks for sharing your evening with us, because together, my friends, we own the night.